Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we'll have guest Christopher Jordan, host of Curious Realm. Some technical difficulties there. Usually we have guests on with their camera. We got audio with him. We cannot get his camera to work. It's something to do with cookies in our browser. We're trying to fix it right before the show, so I run a little late. But we at least got audio, and talk is what it's about. So we'll definitely have him after our World Wide Web of Weird, after our first commercial break. And of course, lots of weird to get into the World Wide Web of Weird. You know, it's on the eve of election here in the next couple days. In this country, at least, things seem to get really weird right up to that point, right? We're never going to get into politics here. But we're going to talk about witches getting into it. You know, and so much more in the World Wide Web of Weird. And of course, we will take your phone calls later in the show if you want to call in. Christopher Jordan is the host of Curious Realm. He covers all kinds of topics, ancient civilizations, arriving new technologies, you know, all of it, just pretty much like we do. He's also a producer of binaural beats, brainwave frequencies. He composes music for meditation. We're getting all these different subjects later after our first commercial break with our guest, Christopher Jordan from Curious Realm. Got a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and get rolling into the show. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest, Christopher Jordan, will be joining us. He's actually there in the waiting room, but we'll see. I know we're having camera problems with him. There's Jamie and Rob. How you guys doing? I hope you had a great Halloweens.
Yeah, it kind of came and went.
Tell me about it. I slept through most. Me and Liam went around in his ghillie suit, and he was tuckered out one round, and he was done. And my nephew was. So I'm like, I'm going back with those kids. And it was cold, windy, and at least it didn't snow like last year. But I was pretty much tuckered out for that night. And then I went on a Paranormal Roundtable with Josh Turner for an hour or so.
I love the ghillie suit, though.
Yeah. He planned that since last year. Our guest, Christopher Jordan, I just want to check in on see if he's there because we've had some issues. Are you there, Chris? He might have stepped away. I'll put him back in the waiting room. So hopefully, if you hear me, Chris, like I said, probably restart your computer and try to rejoin. Otherwise, we'll have audio with him. I'll take it. As long as we got good audio, that's better than no video. Big time. We do have a lot of weird to get to, so let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. You tell I'm off my game. I'm hitting the wrong music feed. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, I thought I'd start off the story that's been making the rounds about Luis Elizondo, a controversial figure, none the least, in the UFO disclosure movement. Maybe if there's disclosure, is he a con artist? I'm in the middle. I'm open. I'm anybody that wants to risk their careers and come out. More power to them. But I also understand some of the criticisms. And this next one, he did not help himself. He did not help himself with this one. Luis Elizondo presents UFO Mothership in Leak Event Image. That's the title from Unexplained Mysteries. But there's, of course, so much more to this. For those listening on the Paranormal Soup radio network on Talkstream's live paranormal radio app, we are a live webcast streaming out to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch if you want to watch. Otherwise, I will narrate as best as possible. All right, let me get there up here. So, Elizondo, who previously headed up the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, has been a prominent figure in UFO disclosure scenes in recent years. A former U.S. Army counterintelligence specialist, the ex-Pentagon official, has been vocal in his criticism of the government handling of subjects and maintains that the cover-up remains ongoing. His own claims haven't been without their own share of controversy, however. Most recently, Elizondo gave a talk at a private event in Philadelphia where he revealed to the audience a photograph of an alleged mothership photographed in the clouds above Romania. At a glance, in the image seemed quite impressive, and when the footage of the event leaked online, it quickly generated considerable debate intrigue on social media. That's all they put here. Could this be genuine evidence of extraterrestrials? No. No, as it turns out. It does not. After the image had emerged, veteran government transparency advocate John Greenwald Jr. of the Black Vault fame ran a reverse image search on Google to look for its original source. What he discovered was that the mothership was in fact little more than a chandelier reflecting off the inside of a window. So why was it being presented as a classified government photo of a UFO? Within a couple of days, Elizondo himself commented on the blunder by blaming it on a friend in government who had given him the photograph a couple years earlier. Wherever the case may be, it certainly hasn't done his own reputation any favors. Research what you got, Elizondo, because if you're getting stuff from friends in the government, they're probably not your friends.
Exactly.
Because this is not the first time a UFO investigator has been given something from somebody they believe, or is somebody who is in the government, but they give them a piece of garbage evidence to discredit themselves with it. They think, hey, I don't need research. This guy gave it to me. He's in the know, right? I mean, Elizondo was somebody kind of in the know. A little concerned about his history of Guantanamo Bay and all that, but I understand the criticisms, but sometimes I think the criticisms are way too over the bound with him. I'd like to hear more, hear him out, but do not fall for this kind of stuff, Elizondo. Just saying, man, it's not going to help you. Doesn't help the movement either. No. It looks like an impressive UFO in the background. It's just a reflection. And then I'm just going to get. It was a chandelier. Yeah. Reflecting in the window. Or is it? No. I think it's a chandelier reflecting. Yeah. So I'm just going to get this story out of the way. Cause, usually I say these get on my soapbox, get pissed off. But I'm going to make myself just get this story out of the way because we got other stuff. Yes, Peanut the Squirrel. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about this. I'm not going to read the article. Everybody knows probably by now about Peanut the Squirrel. But I don't know about you. But this is exactly what I've talked about when I talk about government overreach for how long on this show?
Yep.
They made this dude sit out in his house for 5 hours while they ransacked his house over a frickin' squirrel and a raccoon that they euthanized.
6 years old, had one more year to go anyway.
And he's living in their home. I mean, like, he's not hurting anybody. If this isn't a clear sign of bureaucracy and government overreach, I don't know what is.
And there's a raccoon.
This is bull. Yeah, the poor raccoon. And they're in an animal shelter.
They're turning their back on, the people running over, but they sure can catch that internet squirrel.
Yeah, we don't, I'm not going to get it. I'm not, people want to make it political. I'm just like, just make it as what it is. Your government overreaching. I don't care what party's in power. They all do it. And, the more power you give them, the more they want.
Can't figure out where that cocaine came from in the White House, but we can figure out where there's a legal squirrel and a raccoon.
Right.
Exactly.
And we'll kill them.
What was I saw? They discovered there's like 30 missing children in a certain county recently. There's trafficking going on. But yeah, no, we're gonna nail that squirrel.
Damn,
we're gonna nail that squirrel. It just pisses me off. It pisses me off. It's just like the bear that, I get it. Like a bear comes too close to humans, you got to take it down. This was because of rabies. Okay, this squirrel was not freaking Cujo. Okay,
No.
the only people who could have got rabies were the people that were living with it if it would have happened. And obviously, 7 years they had this thing that never happened. So this is just bull crap. So yes, I'm an animal lover and I love squirrels. And even though they eat my corn from my garden,
my mama munch that I take the videos of and I feed her peanuts and all that. I'm like, I'm not videotaping you no more. Putting you online.
Yeah, you better not, and they're gonna go kill them. I don't know. Now, my great grandmother, I used to try to feed the squirrels, but don't feed the squirrels. They could have rabies, but I love the squirrels. But we did have a pet squirrel.
Yeah, she's my little dog. She follows me around.
But off my soapbox, I'm not gonna spend any more time on it. I know everybody's heard everything about the damn squirrel, but I'm just gonna let you know I'm mad. Just like everybody's outrage. I'll admit I'm outraged. It definitely got me outraged. I will say, definitely.
I mean,
right there with you.
Who doesn't like a squirrel in a cowboy hat? Come on.
I mean, he did tricks. He was a family pet, and when you watch the interview with the couple that lost, you can tell this hurts them deeply.
Yeah,
deeply. Hope they sue the hell out of them.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to more paranormal things. Right. All right, Bigfoot spotted in Missouri as man describes terrifying encounter and claims it jumped 8 feet into the air. Man who lives in Pike County, Missouri, an area known to have large amount of reported Bigfoot sightings, said he had an interaction with a Sasquatch. This comes from the Daily Irish Star. Just in time for the spooky season, William, a resident in Pike County, Missouri, said that not only did he have an encounter with a mysterious creature, but the creature jumped 8 feet into the air. Hold on. I gotta move down the article. I'm driving along the creek, and there's a bend in the creek. The creek is about 8-foot drop off from where I'm at. As I get to the bend in the creek, I look over, and there it is, Williams explained. It's squatting in its own 2 legs, squatting down like a man would squat down, covered in hair. It was in the creek. It turns its head, and it makes eye contact for what seems like an eternity, he added. Williams said that he completely froze once the two made eye contact. He explained that the Bigfoot then had a physical reaction to seeing the human. Then it turns its head and looks straight forward from squatting. It jumps 8 foot up to the same level ground and takes off on 2 legs. White men can't jump, but Bigfoot can. Damn, 8 feet in the air. The rest of the article buzzed out on me, but that's what do you say? You see something like that,
Yep.
I find it weird that only one article I could find was the Daily Irish Star, which is, in Ireland. All right, we move on. Getting like a buzzing sound. I don't know if that's from... Hold on, Rob. Okay, it's from your end, Rob. You're fine. It's not too bad. Just want to make sure it's not coming from me. All right, next one. Oh, here we go. More psychic hijinks. I think we had one last week, didn't we? Yeah, I talked about. We got another one. It's always this time of year, it seems like. Self-proclaimed, and I got this from Tim Binnell from Coast to Coast. Self-proclaimed psychic in Pennsylvania may have a spell behind may have a spell behind bars in her future. Haha. After authorities arrest her for allegedly swindling an unfortunate client out of $13,000. According to a local media report, the case of cosmic theft began back in June when the unnamed victim received an intuitive reading from Sophia Ashley Williams. Following the session, the psychic persuaded the woman to book an additional meeting over the next 3 months to work through various issues that she had sensed in the proverbial ether. As one might imagine, those readings came at a considerable cost. Specifically for one session, the psychic convinced the woman to hand over her mother's wedding ring and silver necklace that belonged to her grandmother. A subsequent reading saw that the purported mystic instructed the victim to give her $3,500 in cash, wrapped in a handkerchief with the birthdays of her family members written on it. This was followed by a $5,000 session brought about by the psychic's claim that the woman's ancestors were involved in some kind of financial dispute. The relationship finally crumbled when the mystic called upon the woman to pay her $4,700 for yet another reading. In this instance, the psychic told her that the specific cost of the session had come to her through her meditations. I'm sure they did. Believing that she was being bilked, the woman... What point did you not... Okay. The woman asked the psychic to make a good on previous promises to return the money and heirlooms upon her request. However, Williams regretfully informed her that she could not do that, as the cash and jewelry were being safely stored at her temple where she did her meditations. Is that temple a pawn shop? This understandably prompted the woman to report the situation to police. After failing to follow through on her assurances to the cops that she would pay her now former client back, Williams was arrested for the alleged schemes that reportedly netted the whopping $1,300. Jeez. Just, one, if you give heirlooms to a psychic, they give them right back to you. All the ones I know, they give them right back to you. If they're holding on to it, the immediate alarm bells should be going off. If they ask for anything like in the thousands of dollars, alarm bells should go off. Don't do it. I just really don't. I'm not. I think there's plenty of good mediums and psychics you can go to that are not going to do this to you. These people give them a really bad name.
But then again, if you're dumb enough to give them that much money.
I don't want to pick on the person because people they prey upon people when they're in vulnerable states, and no judgments. Just be wise to it and look out for friends that could be getting swindled like this too. Friends and family, especially elderly people, or people that are just in a bad place. You got to watch out for that because these crooks, these scam artists, they really stick to them. I have not left the studio. Okay, all right, I was checking on him. Okay.
I could be in a bad place, but if a psychic asked me for $5,000, they'd be in a worse place than me.
Yeah, true. I'm just saying, people need to be aware in this field. There's a lot of shenanigans. There's a lot of hoaxers, and part of me hates covering these like psychic swindling stories because I have friends that are psychics. I do think they do good work. I'm not trying to dissuade people.
He got his camera.
Oh, yes, he did. So we're going to test that and be sure. Like, I'm bringing him on. Second, Chris, I'm going to bring you on just to make sure that's working. You there? Yes, it's working.
Yeah, I'm here.
And you got audio. Just stay there for a second, Chris. You can comment on these other last two if you want. You don't have to. And these last two, I am not trying to get into politics. Again, you know how I hate both sides, and I'm not trying to get into politics. And I know some people, this next one, I debated about this, but I find the story really interesting. The next two kind of related to each other in a sense. Either you're going to love this person or you completely hate this person. That kind of is going to get to my point in these next two articles. But I find it interesting that they confess this in a new documentary that's going to be coming out. Please do not, I don't want to get into politics tonight. It's not about that. It's just about, and I've talked about this, about other celebrities and being in the spotlight. What happens when you're that well known and how you could be attacked spiritually that way. Well, and again, I know this is controversial to people. I get it. But let's go on to the next one. Let's get this over with because I'm super interested in this. I'm sorry. And I'm not a big fan of this person. I don't hate him, though, either. I really think you shouldn't hate people. Not to say I haven't felt that way, but I'm just saying. I don't hate the guy, but don't care for him. But Tucker Carlson, I'll start out that, claims he was mauled by a demon while asleep, leaving claw marks on his body. Now, there's the interviews out there. You can find it. They released it because they're doing this documentary. And at one moment, the guy is really not even looking for this story. I'm trying to remember the way he questioned Tucker. He was saying, why did you convert kind of Christianity? What it was it just the way moral society is degrading, all blah, blah, right-wing talking points, all that, But Tucker just blows him out of the water. It's like, no, I was attacked, like spiritually by a demon that attacked me in the middle of the night with my wife there and left claw marks on him. Now, no matter how you feel about Tucker, what do I say on the show? I do the show to people I don't care what persuasion politically you are. We want to compare notes about our experiences. He said he was attacked, and I believe him. I don't care about what we might differ about. I believe him because he seemed like he was having an honest moment with this guy, and he seemed generally frightened of the experience. He says he still has the marks. I'm wondering what more might get shown in this documentary, but you could tell the documentarian is a bit taken aback by this one, that he didn't expect it. And the question is, here he is. People tried to break into his home. Remember that? With his wife and kids there. He wasn't home. There's a lot of things get nasty in this political world, and I hate it on either side. And what if there are people out there, they're like, I hate Tucker Carlson so much, I'm a practiced witch or whatever, and I'm gonna send a demon after him.
I 100% believe people do that. They're doing it to like a witch group, I think, is like trying to take Trump down or something. And
well, that's the next article. That's the next article.
Before the first election, a
yes,
coven cast a spell against him, and then during his presidency, they did it again.
We covered that. We covered that on the World Wide Web of Weird right before the election, 2016, about the witches and their spells. And here we are, right before the next election.
Rule of 3, anybody?
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. But you get this, Chris. Like, if you're a public, I would never want to be famous. I love the money. I love the money. But I would never want to be famous because it always scared me. I mean, like, remember Art Bell had some weird stuff happen in the studio. He had 16 million listeners at night. You know, a lot of people focusing in on these dark experiences people are having, stories and ideas, and it was great. Loved Art Bell was my biggest influence. But man, remember the time he had like his door rattling and shaking? Something was trying to like get in. Weird stuff happens when you have that much of consciousness, maybe focusing in on one guy.
Just one person. If
right. And what if it's hate? What if it's like focused hate? You know, like could that send a dark entity after you? And here we are now, like Christopher, you're saying here, you know, we had this in 2016 and after Trump got in, more witches were sending spells after him. And now they're up to it again. They're up to it again. We got this last article here. Witches are reportedly trying to use spells to influence the U.S. election. This is Unexplained Mysteries. They have the shorter article. With U.S. elections just weeks away, not only days, both sides are working hard to sway other voters. Other members have been attempting to employ rather more unusual tactics. It's perhaps no secret that witchcraft has been... I'm going to skip on to this part. Here we go. In recent weeks, for instance, a group of some 100 witches with tens of thousands of followers have reportedly been gathering online to cast spells and hexes. Hear that? Hexes designed to stop Donald Trump from returning to the White House. You know what you could do? Just go out and vote. Just go out and vote. Vote for Kamala Harris. That's what you want to do. That's what everybody else. You go vote for the person you want. Don't do black magic into it.
They're going to get the day they deserve eventually.
Maybe use that power to feed the hungry children. You know, maybe get a book in the kids' hands. Something.
You know, one of my favorite guests of arts was Evelyn Pagalini, and she was a witch. Remember? And she used to say, how did she say this? She says, it's easy to be good when you don't have the tools to be bad. Give somebody the tools, like witchcraft, that's your test, you know, because she practiced and she did spells and hexes at times. I just think you should just, you know, if you're going to do magic, do it for, like you said, help children, heal people, do positive things. I think, just go out and vote against the person you don't like and don't do the black hex. I think you're going to have a bad time. I don't think karma-wise that's a good thing.
I have the tools, but I know better, and I will never even mess with anything to do with somebody's even free will if they're involved. No.
But that's what I'm saying. When you're somebody that's, we're spreading so much division and hate, and people are focused feel that passionately, what happens to people that are in the spotlight like that? And can they get attacked spiritually? I remember David Bowie was worried about witches. Remember that in the 70s? He was all worried about witches. He was afraid to let people get his hair or poop because witches would get it. But now I'm sure there's a lot of drugs involved in all that idea and concept, but...
even them believing it so hard can make it even worse for them because you're kind of bringing it to you the more that you're believing it.
I do think that plays a big part of it, yeah. But, for Tucker Carlson, I don't think he thought that was going to happen. I'm sure that took him very much by shock. I think he seems like a practical, logical, rational a-hole. Too rational, probably.
Well, I think that really depends on somebody's A, religious upbringing, B, religious practice to begin with. Because there are many people of very deep Christian belief that will regularly say, that you are under regular demonic attack.
Yeah. But he's somebody that did not have that faith that's brought him to it. So I find it interesting. Yeah. I don't care about the politics of it at all. Nope. What I find interesting is his experience. Leave the politics on the other table.
Don't care about the politics of it either.
Yeah, they don't care either. But I'm just saying, and also to the witches out there, just go vote. Just go vote. That's all you got to do. Leave the black magic out of it. We don't need that. That's it for the Worldwide Web of Weird. Tonight, our guest is Christopher Jordan, host of Curious Realm podcast. We're going to go to our first commercial break. We'll come back with Christopher, and then later in the show, we'll open up the phone lines, guys. All right, we'll be right back.
You were brought here for one purpose, necromancy.
A ceremony dating back to the pre-Christian era. It's the art of reviving the dead. It requires involvement with evil spirits by the person performing the act.
The devil god brings life to the dead.
No, please. No, please, no.
And death to the living. Necromancy. Starring Orson Welles and Pamela Franklin. From Cinerama releasing. In color, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Hello, I am Fernando Martinez. I think by now you know I am an emotional kind of guy. People stop me in the street and say, Fernando, what the hell is wrong with me? Silk shirt, hairy chest, enough aftershave to drown a household pet, but I still cannot get a woman. I tell them you are an ignorant fool. Without a symbol of power and fertility around your neck, what kind of woman is going to respect you? That is why I have teamed up with Medallion Man, the shop for medallion needs. Medallion Man caters to all levels of masculinity. For the strong, silent type, a medallion the size of a hubcap will say everything that needs to be said. Even singing medallions for the Casanova, who knows music is the food of love. Model trains, dollhouses, diapers, whatever your interest, we've got a medallion for you. Don't forget, every woman knows if you can't support a medallion, you can't support a family.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe. 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Christopher Jordan. Christopher is the host of Curious Realm, a podcast that dives into the intriguing topics relating to science, technology, history, and culture. His information and entertaining episodes cover subjects like ancient civilizations, conspiracy theories, and futuristic technologies, featuring expert interviews and in-depth explorations. Known for his engaging presentation style, Christopher makes complex topics accessible to wide audiences. Additionally, Christopher is a composer renowned for his instrumental music, which incorporates solar system frequencies, binaural beats, brainwave frequencies to aid in relaxation and meditation. His work is featured in meditation albums, corporate events, and videos, enhancing the listener's experience through soothing soundscapes. You got to hear a little bit of Christopher. We got a lot of different topics we probably could get into tonight with him. Especially interested in consciousness and meditation with binaural beats is something I've always been interested in getting involved in. I've done a little bit of my own. And of course, later, we'll let you guys talk to him on the show. In the next hour, we'll open up the phone lines after our next commercial break. We got a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and get to our guest. Christopher, thank you for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Now, how did you get involved in this? I see you're a musician. I see the keyboard in the background. And the whole binaural beats, I want to get into that. I'm so fascinated by that. But what got you into the realm of the curious and the unexplained?
I started a show many years ago, ended up winning some awards with it, things like that. It was called Dudes and Beer. And the whole concept behind Dudes and Beer was the idea that America was founded in a bar by a bunch of people of different religious and political backgrounds, and they all agreed on one thing. They didn't want that. Whatever that thing is, we aren't about that. And they came together and they made it happen. And it was one of those, like, I really felt as though our society in general, as someone who used to teach spirituality, religion, things like that, have these conversations regularly. It was strange to me that our society no longer had them, that families no longer had them around Thanksgiving tables like my family did, like other friends' families did. And it's like, wow, this is really the issue, because we can't have this conversation. We are literally stymied as a society, because everybody's trying to convince somebody of a paradigm instead of just trying to empathetically understand what somebody believes and why they believe it, Right. And it became a great show. It was fantastic. We won a couple of awards for news coverage. We got pretty deep into some news coverage for quite a while. Had Anonymous reach out to us to come on the show whenever they hacked the Minneapolis Police Department.
Oh, wow.
Things like that. It was pretty remarkable. And it was great to be able to see that conversation happen, to disagree with people. And the next week we all still came back and we were all still friends, and we're all still friends now. But it really began with an episode of that show with Dr. John Hall. We got into a conversation, into a thick debate one Tuesday. And these conversations would typically, by the end of the three-hour episode, have about an 18 pack in each of us. And
I can imagine.
We got into a debate one evening about subliminal technologies and about specifically targeted individuals and the idea of being able to control brainwaves via distance. And one of my co-hosts was like, "No way, man. Like, you are smoking crack right now. That shit is not," pardon my language, that is not possible. I was like, okay, tell you what, from my old broadcast days, I have a connection right up the road in San Antonio. I was like, let me see if I can get in touch with him. But he literally wrote a book called Guinea Pigs, Technologies of Control. His name is Dr. John Hall. And I had him on the following week. I reached out to him and told him the situation. I was like, you've got to come. It's not even about me being right. It's about people understanding that this is a thing. And that it's out there, and it blew their minds. They were like, oh my God. And that really begat the world of us having guests and stuff like that. And as things moved on, I started doing a lot of road work. I ended up being on the road about 35, 40 weeks a year. And that precluded me having a studio outside of the house, which kind of changed the way the show was done. And so, yeah, things just kind of organically evolved into Curious Realm. But it literally began as you were saying at the beginning of this show, Jason, the idea of we need to be able to have this conversation. And even now with Curious Research, that is a lot of what I'm out speaking at conferences about, is the idea of like we as paranormal researchers, as people who look into these things, as people who are out in the field investigating, need to be, I don't care if you like science or not. I'm sure your thread will probably pop off real quick with a bunch of people like, don't trust big science. The problem is at some point we got to trust big science.
Yeah.
And we need to be doing our part to have our data ready to shake their hand, because it's rapidly catching up. Yeah. Like rapidly catching up with the world of paranormal. Even the idea that quantum entanglement won the Nobel Peace Prize 2 years ago. Feel free to Google image of an entangled electron and bring it up on screen, because it's pretty remarkable to see that it looks exactly like a yin yang.
Yeah.
Like precisely a yin yang. It's not like, oh, that's kind of a yin yang looking thing. It is a straight up yin yang, like in proportion and everything. So when you start seeing how science is once again rapidly catching up, rapidly beginning to prove these things, like I just spoke on the Remote Viewing Association cruise, and that was a lot of my presentation, was the idea that this has been around. I mean,
our government spent tons of money on it, on remote viewing.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, that'll probably be another one that pops off a lot of people, because a lot of people are like, they canceled the program because there were no results. They did fight hard for their funding every year. Yes, there was only about 10 million total. 10 to 15 million total spent on the world of remote viewing with the government. But yeah, there's the awesome image.
I mean, there's no question that's a yin yang.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, just speaks volumes to what ancient civilization knew about vibration, what they knew about frequencies, things like that, because you have to understand how material works. You have to understand how matter works. And that was even something that I brought up on the remote viewing cruise, the idea of like Hal Puthoff was the scientist, a laser scientist who wrote the paper that begat the laboratory work of the whole idea of remote viewing, the concept that a scientist, when they went home and thought about their experiment in the lab, was adversely affecting their experiment. Basically through this process, through the process of entangling yourself with your experiment, spooky action at a distance, that idea of like, when you're sitting in traffic thinking, did you leave your iron on? Did you think it so long and so hard that your iron turned on and burned your house down?
Right.
Do
we create our problems in the world by our own anxieties and fears?
Well,
are we Ray and Ghostbusters, and we bring about the state of Marshmallow Man?
Yeah.
That's the theory.
Yeah, precisely. And even the idea of what you were talking about earlier with the witch coven,
right,
and things like that. Like you don't have to have a witch coven. You don't need a witch coven to do that. All you need is a bunch of people that are thinking the same thing. That's it. And it can get pretty out there pretty quick. And that's even something that I bring up regularly when it comes to paranormal research. And like, if you're out there scientifically trying to gather data, you probably shouldn't, as you're prepping your gear, things like that, you should probably not be with your team. You should all be isolated from each other. You shouldn't be sitting there reading stories about the location you're going to or watching videos about it. You should be coming at that as blank slate as possible. You should have literally a rote checklist of like, do I have my camera? Check. Do I have, okay, cool. Put it all away. Because the more you think about it, the more you may be actively activating that environment.
Right.
Which, yes, may cause a phenomenon, but is that a phenomenon that you can then repeatedly prove? You know,
people bring me, I've had mediums come on investigations. My rule's always been, whatever you're seeing, feeling, or hearing, write it down.
Yeah.
Don't say it out loud, because I don't want anybody else influenced by it. You know, especially if it's a home. Somebody has to go to sleep there after we leave. We'll research that. If we can back anything up that you're sensing or whatever, that'd be cool. I learned that lesson early on when this guy was a medium, supposedly, or a sensitive, and he says, "Oh, you got people buried in the basement." I'm like, "What is he saying to that owner?" Like, "Oh, dear God, they got to go to sleep here. We have no proof of that." I'm like, "Don't say that." Like, I do a big stink about it, and I was just the new guy in the group. I didn't make a lot of friends that way, but I'm like, "I'm sorry, you can't tell that to an owner. You can't tell that to somebody. They have to sleep here. You have no proof."
Some of my best validation I've gotten, I'll have a base idea, or if I've heard it on a show, like some story, but I won't investigate ahead of time or look at other people's YouTube videos. But the best is when you have a really incredible experience, and then you go back and you start going over your footage and everything, and then you look at people's YouTube videos to kind of compare experiences, and you see they have the exact experience. It's like such validation, because you didn't just think about it because you were thinking about it, had it on your mind.
Yeah, precisely. And that's just it. Even in the world of remote viewing, that's called AOL, analytic overlay. It's the idea of it's off target, but you've related it to the target.
Right.
And it's pretty interesting when you start getting into all of that. And even the idea of like the kind of part of the whole reason that I authored the field observation and encounter log is that we need to write these things down as they happened. Like you were saying, Jason, the idea that don't talk about it, write it down. Write down what time it happened, what the temperature was, things like that in the same form and fashion across the team. And then you can compare notes after.
Yeah, because you can create this like funhouse effect. Like, oh, I just saw this. It's hard to control that with people. Even good investigators can have something majorly happen. It's hard to control that emotion of like, I want to tell her, oh my God, this happened, know. But that's what you want to. That's the goal you want to get to with a group or whatever. It's been a long since I gotten to do it, but that was like always my goal. It's like get us to try to not emotionally react to these things, observe, write it down, and like not give ourselves that funhouse effect.
Yeah, precisely, and especially that write it down aspect, and write it down now, not like write it down in the morning when you get home or something like that. Write it down as soon as you can, because other than that any cop will tell you, hey, you've got 48 hours. After 48 hours, any memory, anything like that is fully deprecated at that point. You have filtered it through levels of belief in your system. You've filtered it through past experiences in your life. Once again, like you were saying, stories that you've heard of the location, things like that. So at that point, you've already actively started corrupting your own recollection of the experience.
You also have to take into account what we're talking about tonight, too. When you have enough people focused in on a spot or a location with a urban legend, let's say, that they be creating it. What we we think we're talking. There's some classic experiments in this where they've created entities in a sense, tulpas, or you want to call it a thought form.
Yeah, whether you want to call it a tulpa from Buddhist tradition, or if you want to call it an egregore, as they would call it in witchcraft. It's even going into the idea of the golem from Jewish tradition. Creating something to do your bidding, or creating something out of a thought or out of a fear. And that was even something, being so close to Halloween, that was actively something that Wes Craven considered that he had done. And it wasn't until the second Nightmare on Elm Street came out, and he went on Oprah, and when he came out on stage, saw 8-year-olds dressed as Freddy Krueger, and it flabbergasted him. It floored him.
Yeah, because he's like, my 8-year-old loves that stuff too. Sorry, Wes Craven.
But it's one of those, like, he's like, I saw how all of these parents were such raging fans that they had no compunction not to dress their child as a child raping serial killer.
Yeah, right.
Who parents burned alive.
Yeah.
You know?
Did we miss the point of the movie? I love Wes Craven, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just it. He was just like, my God, what have I created? And he got to thinking about the fact that right as the first Nightmare on Elm Street and right as this fervor took off for this character, the Night Stalker killings were happening.
Ooh.
And he actively considered the fact that this fervor that he created had manifested itself in the Night Stalker.
I didn't know that.
I didn't hear that one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
it's
deep.
pretty fascinating. It's pretty fascinating.
I mean, look, well, he made
the idea of like
the New Nightmare. What was New Nightmare? That is that concept of New Nightmare. So that makes total sense of why he made New Nightmare.
Yeah. That's
wow. That gives that movie a whole new meaning to me. I'm gonna have to rewatch that one again.
It's pretty fascinating, but that was something that he gave active consideration. Was like, did I move zeitgeist so much that people's love for this killer manifested a killer?
Yeah. Yeah. And you got little children's brains manifesting it, like believing in it or whatever. And you know what? The second Nightmare on Elm Street was pretty damn scary.
Oh, it was the bomb. I loved it.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
With the guy being possessed by him and everything else.
The whole bus scene and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Like the nightmares. Yeah. Oh my God. I think it's more scary than the first one.
My
son has not watched it. Just so you know, my 8-year-old has not watched Nightmare on Elm Street. But I will admit, we did do the Chucky season. We did all the Chucky movies this Halloween season.
All right.
He's always had an obsession with haunted dolls.
My 7-year-old has wanted to watch those, and I'm like, not yet, bud. Soon.
Not yet, but
not yet.
We just did it this year. He turns 9 in January, and it might help me out. But he's begged me for years to watch it, so I said, "All right, we'll watch the first one." He's like, "We gotta watch all of them now. They're gonna leave HBO Max, Dad, on Halloween." Like, in for a penny, in for a pound. Let's go, kid. You know,
that's right.
You know,
that's right.
Yeah. His grandmother's watching right now, shaking her head. Sorry, Mom. Sorry.
But his age watching him at slumber parties, it was the best.
Yeah. Oh, that was my thing. Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street was my #1 pick.
Yeah.
Like we go to the video store, Blockbuster, for my sleepover, for my birthday parties. It always like we're getting Friday the 13th.
Yeah,
like,
run right
we gotta have some.
section.
I'd have the whole Nightmare on Elm Street collection ready to go to binge watch the whole night. You know that Wes Craven, heck yeah. Oh, now I got to watch New Nightmare again. That's awesome.
It'll give you a whole new focus on it because
look at the Slender Man. Like that whole thing is an internet phenomenon that led to 2 girls murdering or trying to murder another girl.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
and you know, I mean, just even right now with the burning of buses and things like that after the war, you can just watch the World Series or the NBA finals every year, things like that. You can see how this mass mentality takes over people that really just makes no logical sense. Like, so your team won, you're going to burn a city up.
Yeah, my team lost, they'll burn a city. I don't know which one they're going to. I think we're screwed either way.
Like, either way, it's just a team. It's just a game.
I know. I never understood that.
But do we take it so seriously that we burn a city down? Yeah. Yeah.
I think just give people an excuse to burn things down. There's just some people that are going to be like, woohoo, let's go. They lost, they won, I don't care.
I lived in Portland, Maine when the Red Sox won the first World Series in like 100 years, something like that, when they broke the curse. And like, I remember a woman dying from having been shot by a rubber bullet.
Jeez.
In the riots in the city, and she was just trying to get home. She wasn't even involved in the riot. She was passing by, and the cop missed the shot and ended up hitting her in the head. But yeah, it's one of those like it was bad enough that they were shooting rubber bullets off at people.
That's over a sports game
because you won. So that's the kind of madness. It's one of the questions that we ask regularly on my show. Is I'm pretty sure that a good 75% of alien species passing by are locking the door.
Yeah, no, I always say it's the scene from National Lampoon's Vacation.
National Lampoon,
right? Yeah. Roll the windows, rest. Roll them up. Roll them up.
Roll them up. Roll them up.
That's the aliens. They should be doing that.
You know, the idea that yes, I firmly believe that we have alien civilization. Have we contacted them yet? I don't know. If they are hugely enlightened, I don't know about that. You know, we can't even get a conversation across the floor of our own UN without it creating a kerfuffle somewhere across the globe. Much less are we ready to have an intergalactic conversation.
We're killing squirrels, man. I don't think
you know,
breaking into people's homes and killing squirrels. They ain't going so good here on Earth. Well, I'm a big fan of ever since I was a kid of ancient alien theory.
Oh yeah,
not a fan of Ancient Aliens. You know, gets a lot of stuff wrong in the TV show, but the general purpose of it and the idea of it, I've been fascinated with. At least even ancient civilizations, if you even put the alien thing aside,
I think with that, with things like Oak Island, I'm a huge fan of both of them. You know, even with all the paranormal shows, things like that. Like heck, right down the road, I have Barry and Brad Klinger from Ghost Lab and stuff like that.
I actually like that show. One of the few shows I like in the paranormal world.
And the thing is, what we have to remember is that they're all entertainment.
Yeah.
They're all entertainment first and foremost. They're entertainment. You know, like I belong to a lot of the Acorn communities. I've had a few of the researchers on my show, and it's one of those like, I think you skipped the intro this episode where it says one more person has to die. Like, watch the intro. You'll find out if they find the gold, because that won't be there.
Right. Right. Oh my God.
Until then, the gold is the history that's being changed. The actual science that's being found that changes the history of the area, not just for the island, but for the natives that live in the area. Things like that for the original peoples of the area. You know,
it's a fascinating story, though, Oak Island. Like,
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, but like you said, like, you know, somebody's got to die. I'm not ready to get that gold, man.
Well, it's the fact of, it's a prime example of how we get caught up in the fervor and we forget about the science. You know, like we forget that it's the same thing with Curse of Skinwalker Ranch, where people get up and like, stop launching the rockets. It's like, you're asking the scientists to stop doing the repeatable science.
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen. Like
if weird stuff happens when they fire off the rockets, then let's fire off some more rockets and see what happens. I'm all for it.
Yeah. No, that's just it. Like, that's the repeatable science part. That seems like about every 2 or 3 times we launch a rocket, something happens. You know? So let's keep doing it.
No, I love that. I actually really love that show. I don't like. I mean, like, to me, that's not like a paranormal show. Like the other ones at all.
Yeah,
because they are testing things. They're trying to. It's why I like Ghost Lab. I'll tell you what. You talk about the Kling brothers. I really like Ghost Lab because they tried doing things. It was entertainment, but they tried doing things and experiments. Remember the Aerocues and testing the water in the river to see what the water content. So they were really exploring things for a TV show. I thought they did a good job. And Skinwalker Ranch, that's what you're like. Okay, we got weird stuff when we launched a rocket. Let's do it again and see what happens. See, that's what I want. Let's not just end it there. Let's launch another rocket. You know, there's so much fascinating about that place.
Well, and it really brings up a conversation on society, though, and the idea that, you know, science is typically not sexy.
No.
Otherwise, you'd be hearing about things like quantum entanglement a whole lot more. You know, you'd have banner headlines for things like matter made from light at CERN. That was a headline 4 years ago. That was almost 4 years ago. That is 3 steps away from Replicator, Coffee Black.
Yeah, thank you,
Star
Trek.
Like that should be the sexiest headline on the news, not the body count or the traffic. You know, so we have to kind of examine that as ourselves as a society. Like, what are we prioritizing?
Well, people are like, oh, your show should be bigger. You should get out there. I'm like, I do a 3-hour live show. That's not what the kids like. You know what I'm saying? They need a 5-minute influencer to give them a video on something, or an hour-long video of them like brushing something just so they can zone out on their Xanax or whatever.
Well,
you know, like,
it's funny. I had a very good friend of mine here in Austin that at one point owned a YouTube type platform called Breach. It was great. It was fantastic. There were a bunch of creators and a bunch of gamer creators on there specifically. And he would give me deep metrics all the time. Like, hey, your show gets some great views, but they tend to clock out at about 20 minutes. Like, you should chop things into 20-minute segments. And I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I was like, if I have Radical Empathy Foundation on talking about VR being used to help human trafficking victims explain their story to police and things like that, like just explaining the legal definition of human trafficking is 20 minutes.
Right. You want to have a conversation. That's what I want to do.
That's the preamble. That's not even the meat of the conversation. So if that's who's listening, I don't know if I need them.
Right. Well, that's. I mean, I'd love to have more viewers, but I'm in this for long conversations.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm an Art Bell fan. Used to do 4 or 5 hour shows. I'm saying, like, I listen because I love the conversations.
Yeah.
I want to hear long form talk about all these different topics, and like with the Tucker Carlson thing, I don't care about the politics of it. I just want to hear the guy's experience. I might lose some subscribers. I don't care. I want to talk about his experience as somebody as in a public figure that might have been attacked. Maybe somebody sent a witch sent something after him. Because I have had plenty of people on here, call-ins and guests, that have had that experience of something being sent to them, a curse.
Well, it doesn't matter who they are. It's the experience.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. We got to share and be able to, like you did with your beer podcast, is be able to have conversations. We can disagree on things, but be able to still talk and converse about it without getting our butts hurt.
That's how you evolve. Not everybody's made to agree on everything.
We don't want to agree.
No.
We shouldn't want to agree. That's called homogeny, and it's only good for milk.
Or the board.
It's,
get a Star Trek
it's one of those. The example I give is I would like more than the red and blue of Pepsi and Coke. We got Fanta, we got root beer, we got Sprite, we got all kinds of choices when you walk down the beverage aisle, man.
Yeah. Many doors to the Dharma,
That's how it's supposed to be. It's numerous facets on a gym, and each one is individual, and to change any one of them changes the gym entirely.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we got when it comes to the paranormal, in these experiences, be it UFO, Bigfoot, ghost, or any of the ones, for so long people were afraid to talk about it. It's getting more open. It's getting more accepted. People are getting more able to talk about it. Thank you to the internet and this technology, But that's what we need to do. We have to compare notes. We have to compare notes on our experiences. I feel cherished every time I do the show and somebody realizes that I do this, and then they decide to share with me an experience. I feel honored. That they're sharing this with me. And a lot of times it's a personal one, something like a family member coming back to them after they die. And I'm honored that somebody shares that experience with me. But that's what we got to do. We got to feel open to talk about that. Like you said, nobody's talking at Thanksgiving anymore, hardly. Everybody's on their phone,
Yeah. Or just not at Thanksgiving.
Or not even there. By video call.
Zooming in.
Got my turkey dinner. I'm joining you, Mom.
Yeah. No, like they don't even want you on the Zoom sometimes. That's how it's gotten, and that's just it. Like, that's not a conversation. That is a firm foundation of a brick wall. Is what that is. That's nowhere near an open heart or an open mind. And
I'm praying for our country here in the next couple of days that people have open hearts and open minds, and please do not fight over these turds. I beg you, people, don't fight over these turds. They don't care. They don't care about you. It ain't worth your time.
Yeah.
It ain't worth your anger or frustration over no matter who wins or doesn't.
Please
just love your neighbor.
Yeah.
Just love your neighbor no matter what happens.
Yeah. And that's just it. It's one of those it's very easy to give people a myopic point of view, to narrow an open mind and to build that wall. And whether it comes to science, whether it comes to experiencers, whether it comes to even experiencers not trusting science, these walls are built to cross it. And it's interesting because I belong to a lot of UFO, UAP communities. I'm pretty closely tied with MUFON, things like that. And I am a fan of the relabeling of UAP.
You are?
Mainly because once you add, unfortunately, the term UFO was used and misused for so long that much like the term paranormal, it became like a Kleenex. And there's 1,001 products that are called facial tissue. We call them all a Kleenex.
Yeah.
And science doesn't like that. Science needs categorization, not blanket terms.
I've been up in the air about the UAP thing. I've been kind of snide about it, you know. The way the people use it to be like in a safer place. I'll say UAP, you know.
I like it because phenomena lands it in the backyard of science. Yeah. You cannot have phenomena happening in an experiment and have full results in an experiment. True. It doesn't work that way. You can't. There's no way I would have passed chemistry with a 5% remainder of solution in an equation. What did it off gas? Did it become sediment? At all. What happened? There's a 5% anomaly here that you have to account for in order to finish with the 100% that you started with.
What's your thoughts though, like on the way that they have in the disclosure movement in Congress and that presented it? Like, to my biggest beef is that they seem to present evidence that they knew later on would be completely debunked.
Some of it.
Not all of it. Not all of it. I should clarify. Not all of it.
No. Some things, and those were, I think, some beautiful points in that first NASA panel that happened. Like when Go Fast was eviscerated, that was something that me and my guest Mike Turber regularly talked about. Was the idea of like all the information is right here on the screen. It's giving you the speed of the object the speed of the plane that's observing the object. It's giving you the distance to the object. It's giving you the relative speed of the object. It's giving you a distance to background. Like all of the info for trigonometry of the size and speed of this thing is right there. And come the end of it, it's approximately 40-foot object going about 40 miles an hour, being observed from a very fastly moving platform.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, that falls pretty well into the contingency of a known solution. So we're going to move forward and put our efforts into other things that are more unknown. Should it have made it to the point of NASA? That's what they said. This really shouldn't have made it this far.
Right. Well, they presented, they showed, what was it, I'm trying to remember what ship it was on, but they had the triangle. Remember, like a glowing green triangle in the infrared.
Yeah.
Which is the lens. It's the lens. Now, there could have been a drone over there.
It's the actual shape of the iris as it closes.
There was things like that they presented that drove me nuts. It's like, I know you got better stuff than this.
Yeah.
I know you got way better stuff than this. Why are you giving us the garbage?
Well, I think a lot of that was there to open the conversation. Also to the point of there was some of it that once again is still pretty anomalous.
Oh yeah, I agree. There was some stuff they did,
and
I agree.
And sadly, it's one of those that we discuss on my show. Not only that, but targeted individuals, that kind of stuff. It is sadly one that, yes, it will have to be through legislation. That because it's not like it's held by the U.S. Army. It's not like it's held by the U.S. Air Force.
Right.
This stuff is lying in the hands of private contractors.
Exactly.
Things like that. So until you find a grush that can track them down and say, those are the dudes shutting the door when I ask them about money.
Yeah, no, exactly
That until you tie the purse strings, it ain't going to stop.
Yeah.
And we won't have capital D disclosure. So sadly, yes, folks, it is up to who you put in there on Tuesday, and not even president wise, like senator wise.
True.
Because feel free to go back and watch Schoolhouse Rock. There's exactly like 10 things the president can do, and 8 of them require Congress. So other than
they seem to be able to go to war without Congress anymore.
Smaller parties and make some deals that still have to be approved by Congress. But we
did have legislation. We have had legislation. It says that they're supposed to give any pertinent information, and who is it? Basically, like, is it the Air Force that's basically giving the middle finger on that one, and have not? I mean, and it goes with like with JFK. They're supposed to give all those. They were supposed to give those a long time ago. Trump passed on it too. Now he says he's not going to, but there's things that they have.
And that's just it. It's even what they do with people like Hal Puthoff. Like I had a breakfast with him at a conference and asked him to come on the show. And he was like, I would love to. He's like, but I'm read into so many programs that it's hard for me to tell what I can publicly talk about and what I can't.
I bet.
You know, and it's one of those that even the things that happened 50 years ago that he should be able to talk about, he's now been read into another program that is adjunct to that research. So now we can't talk about the original research, even though it's been opened. The people involved with it now can't talk because they're involved with programs that are adjunct to that are possibly using part of that technology. So they still can't talk about it. It's an amazing way that they keep them in the loop without keeping them in an active program just so they can't talk.
I know. And you know, Hal Puthoff seems like he wants to. He seems he wants to.
Oh yeah, no, like we had a great private conversation. It was fantastic.
Wasn't it him at Los Alamos? Bob Lazar went to. Was it Hal Puthoff that he went to originally that he talked to that helped get him into Area 51? I think it was Hal Puthoff.
It may have been
because he had a connection to him, and he was working at the Los Alamos. And according to Bob Lazar, it was Hal Puthoff that he kind of put into the ear that he was interested in, and it all flew from that from that conversation with Hal Puthoff. I mean, the guy's got access. I mean, look at Bigelow. I mean, he as a private contractor involved in Skinwalker Ranch, you know, he had what I think were art's parts, maybe, you know, and other things. He's had this openly talked about his interest in it, but he's an open guy. There's all these other military contractors are not like that. They're not going to talk about it ever, you know?
No, 2 years ago, it was 2 years ago. I co-sponsored the International Association of Near-Death Studies Conference with the Bigelow Institute, and Robert Bigelow was there. And man, the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness, BICS, had a paper writing contest for concepts of contact with the other side.
We covered that on the
Jeffrey Mishlev ended up winning the whole contest.
Yeah.
But at that conference, they announced $1 million reward.
Yeah.
A bounty for anybody that could scientifically prove laboratory connection with the other side.
So it's like
out there.
Robert Redford in The Discovery. Have you ever seen that Netflix movie they did? You know, somebody would be like him that could like prove the afterlife. Now, hopefully nobody else goes out and starts killing themselves like in the concept of that movie. But
but the idea of that, even, you know, the idea of UFOs, UAPs, the idea of strange cryptids, the idea of ghosts, even the idea that we have adjunct dimensions directly next to us and abutting our reality regularly, that's literally just a matter of frequency.
Yeah.
To hit those other dimensions. And that's kind of what I explained in part of my presentation at the Remote Viewing Association cruise was the idea that this concept came from because a lot of people are like, why the heck are laser scientists interested in parapsychological study? Or, you know, the idea of clairvoyance or anything like that. It's like, it's because in order to understand how to make a laser, you have to understand how to vibrate matter and how to vibrate matter so much and so regularly and so properly that as light passes through it, the properties of the light coming out are actively different. And it doesn't matter if that matter is solid, liquid, or gas. You're vibrating it to such an extent that all of the photons, instead of being scattered white light from a white strobe light, actively all cohere together and sync up in the same pattern and in the same frequency range. It's
just like you said, it's replicator and holodeck technology from Star Trek, baby. Oh yeah, let's go.
It's mind-blowing stuff, you know, when you start thinking about it. And it's just like, wow. It's stuff that has fascinated me. That's probably the first deep dives into science that I made in junior high and things like that were a book called How to Make Lasers. And to this day, even whenever I'm on job site, I do a lot of corporate audio video. I did rock and roll for years and years, and the laser techs were always my favorite. Sitting down and talking with them and picking their brain. And like there's a guy I know who actively did all of the laser work for the Meow Wolf installations. And to see him online, just like playing with elements like rubidium and stuff like that inside of fluid to get different colors, like, oh, look, I'm going to change the color of this beam as it goes through this prism with this on the back end, things like that. It's wild. It's wild.
Well, you can think, I mean, what these people are doing openly about with lasers, what are, what private contractors and the DOD and those guys have done with it, what they've known about it.
Exactly.
It could be way ahead of us on that one.
Even the idea for years, scientists saying, for a UFO to operate the way people say, you would need the power of a nuclear reactor. One of the videos that we show regularly on my show is actively a Skunkworks branded video from Lockheed Martin about their nuclear reactor program. And it shows a scientist, a very young scientist in about 2012. He was probably about 26 years old, something like that, with something about the size of a walk-in freezer, behind him, talking about like, yeah, this is our nuclear reactor. Like, it's the size of what's behind me, you know? He's like, yeah, this is our reactor. We 2 or 3 generation this every year.
They're talking about it openly now.
By the time we're done, I'll need a new job. And on my website in the Knowledge Vault, I actively have the Lockheed Martin nuclear reactor patent that fits inside of an F-16. So it's approximately the size of a V8 engine, a little bit bigger.
Oh yeah, they're talking about using nuclear reactors to get to Mars.
Oh yeah,
you can't bring all that fuel. You can't just load tons of fuel, rocket fuel. It ain't going to work. It ain't going to work. And nuclear reactors are going to be. But, this goes back to what they wanted to have nuclear reactors up in space during the Reagan Star Wars, project. And that was violating treaties,
Yeah.
And you see a lot of it makes me wonder if I'm sure we've already put some nuclear reactors up into space. You know it.
Oh,
you know we did.
We have nuclear batteries in just about most satellites. So
but I mean, like, we're putting this stuff up there. You wonder, you see all the UFO sightings and stuff around nuclear power plants, nuclear ships, or people ICBMs, and we got Maelstrom, and we got all these things where it seems aliens have a little bit of curiosity what we're doing with nuclear, power. What their thoughts are when we start throwing this stuff up into space. Well,
and there is, oh my God, his name just left my head. Michael P. Masters. He is an anthropologist who has stepped into the foray of UFO UAP studies. I interviewed him at MUFON, not this year, but last year. And his work basically centers around the principle of extrapolating out human evolution and the idea of our cranium and our eye sockets, and looking at how we have evolved from the time of Cro-Magnon to now over that 10,000, 20,000 year span, things like that. And how that has evolved and how our anatomy has evolved. And if you extrapolate that out another 10, 25,000 years, we start looking kind of gray.
Yeah, I realized that as a kid.
With our physiology.
There was a museum I was at with my parents when I was a kid, a teenager, and they had what humans could look like 5,000 years, 10,000 years from now. And I'm like, that looks like an alien gray to me.
Yeah. And the idea of us being able to travel through time, but I not crazy. Not crazy. Right. We've already technically had time travel in a lab by changing the amount of time that it takes light to arrive from one source to another. That's already been done. We've already had teleportation of light in a lab. So these things are right there.
Oh yeah,
we're right
just
on the
imagine
cusp of it.
If you get into the idea of travel through time or parallel universe time travel, in a sense of like Paradox 3 time travel, in the sense that you can go back to a timeline, and as soon as you enter it, it's a new timeline.
Yeah,
that idea, or it's a parallel past history. It seems like yours. Some of these aliens that could be visiting us could be future possible versions of us. They could come from another planet. And they're coming back to see their ancestral roots and time traveling to see where they came from.
Which explains a lot of their curiosity about our genetics.
Right.
It explains a lot of their curiosity and warnings about, like, don't play with nuclear power, don't do this stuff. It seems as though they're either trying to come back and possibly reverse engineer something, or that they are trying to prevent something from happening. And like
hybridize off a lost genetic code.
A pretty interesting hypostulation to put that out into the future and consider that it is either a future or adjacent us that is coming through.
Right, an adjacent us, like possible future version of us.
Or even one from a parallel dimension that we end up interacting with, and what we do and affects here affects there.
I mean, look at the wave of UFOs after Hiroshima. After the nuclear age, we had a huge wave of UFOs, and you have a number of different crash besides Roswell.
Yeah.
There are some. I mean, there's plenty of other ones we could talk about that are before the nuclear age that happened, but there's definitely a wave that happened. Anybody with a UFO, you could see the wave of UFO and the human consciousness, how it came about during this time period. Again, the nuclear bomb happened, and if there were aliens that have any kind of stake in us, that was their time to say, hey, we're here. You guys cut it out. That would be the time.
Yeah, precisely. And it's fascinating when you start, because that's honestly my favorite thing about science that I think people forget is, you look at that chart of the scientific method, it begins with observation. It begins with an experience. So if you're out and have a paranormal experience, like, the science has begun. The question is whether or not you've hopped on the train.
Yeah.
Like the science already started, with or without your consent. You've
observed.
Yeah. You've observed. At that point, you gather more data about the topic. And after that, you hypothesize, and you're allowed to hypothesize anything you can imagination given the data and experience at hand.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason Einstein spent so much time in his head.
That's right. Thought experiments. Yeah. And that's just it. One of the things that I say that it causes a lot of kerfuffle at some conferences is I love the red circles. I love the red circles, and we need more of them.
And what you talking about, like in a paranormal photograph, and somebody circles it, and
paranormal,
people bitch about the
cryptid,
circle?
UFO, like, here it is.
I'm with you.
Now, here's the thing. Yes, we should be posting those things before a red circle and saying, do you see anything? Stuff like that. However, here's my defense of the red circle, folks. The red circle, as long as you are willing to accept, somebody like me who spent 30 years behind a lens and editing video and audio and things like that, I can spot a lot of things like the chandelier. I work around chandeliers and reflections of them all day long. I spotted that pretty quick as soon as I saw it. I didn't even have to read the article.
Right.
It was like, oh, look at that.
We've had a number of chandeliers and light fixtures in videos in our World Wide Web Weird before.
Now, here's the thing. That's perfectly okay. You still had an experience. You had something. You took a picture. You circled it in red. Now, what we found is that your anomaly lies within the realm of known quantitative. As long as you can accept that, you have still contributed to science.
Yeah.
Because you've expanded the realm of known quantitative, we are now narrowing the band and the bandwidth of the unknown. So the more known quantitative information we have, and the bigger that data set is, the faster we can eliminate something as known quantitative, or say, this lies in the 5 to 3% realm of,
It's when somebody hands you, as a paranormal investigator, people know you're into it, they hand you a photo like, do you see what I see?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. What am I seeing? Put the circle around it so I know. Then we'll talk.
But that even brings up the fact, once again, of writing that data down. Because unless you have the data to go with that picture, unfortunately, the only reason we know that a picture is worth 1,000 words is because we are familiar with the situation in that picture. If you show an average 20-year-old a picture of a wedding reception, they have a frame of reference. You show that to a 4-year-old, likely zero frame of reference. They have no idea what's going on. They may know what a kiss is. They may know what a bride is or something like that, but they don't have a frame of reference as to what a wedding reception is if they haven't been to a wedding.
Yeah.
So without that experience yourself, or without the 1,000 words that the picture's worth, it's just a picture.
Yeah.
So you've got to have the data behind the picture. And you know, it happens pretty regularly in social media. I've if I could use it, unfortunately StreamYard doesn't let me use my OBS system. Otherwise I would show you a video that I typically show of the planet Sirius. And when you look at it, it is a large ring that's moving and throbbing and changing colors and moving around, moving across the screen like this. Now, if I just posted that and said, look at this, recorded it in my backyard last night, I could get a lot of response, and probably a lot of similar, you know, cajolative response. I've seen that. Oh, wow. Yeah. Energy ships hide behind clouds, all kinds of stuff, you know, but given the actual data,
coming.
Given the actual data of, I recorded this in my backyard last night, looking at the southwesterly sky at 7:30 p.m. at this inclination in this direction, you would have probably pretty easily found out that that is an unfocused picture of the dog star Sirius that tends to change colors and also throbs because of, you know, atmospheric disturbance. And the only motion that's happening is the actual motion of the Earth, as exaggerated by the size of my telescope.
Yeah.
You know,
I also think
and the fact that it wasn't tracking
too.
the star yet.
Well,
So
Providence,
yeah.
I always say this, it plays into this because you get so many videos like on TikTok and
Yeah.
Facebook and YouTube.
And
They have the
even
Providence, so it looks
lose
great.
Picture, even lose
Yeah.
picture, you know, and that brings the fact of, research does not happen in a vacuum. It doesn't.
No.
You need a ride or die. You need somebody that can check you. You need somebody that can call you out. And you need somebody that you can trust to call you out. And you can be like, wow, okay, I'll take 2 steps back. Good point. You know, because unfortunately things like that happen to the best of us.
Right.
They happen to the
That's
best
what I'm
of
saying.
investigators. So
That's what I'm
give Lou a
saying.
little bit of a break, folks.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what I'm saying.
I'm
I
not
don't think this was intentional. Like, I don't
No.
think he was trying to. I think when he says
No.
somebody he trusted,
Yeah.
I'm like, boy, welcome to the club, because there's a ton of other UFO investigators that got duped just like you, buddy.
Hey,
because they thought this person's in the military. They're giving it. I think it's a way to just discredit people. They do this.
Yep. I did a whole episode not too long ago with Kathleen Martin, the niece of Betty and Barty Hill.
I'd love to have her on the show.
Whenever Dr. Stephen Greer came out about 4 months ago, just before MUFON conference, and said that the Betty and Barney Hill abduction was MILABs, that it was a military-led abduction, and that their memories were implanted. Interesting, but also one of those that is a divisive wedge of a statement in the community and a large sack of taters to stand on the corner with.
Yeah. I knowing the case, there's some weird military involvement with Betty and Barney Hill that happened at least afterwards, maybe even before.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know if that's on my life. How do we know? You know, like I wouldn't make that bold statement.
Well,
I'm not a big fan of Stephen Greer because of things like that. But
well, and you know, we got into it. We dug into it. And even the idea of like timeline wise, I was like, yeah, sure. We had some things like MK Ultra, stuff like that happening at the time. They weren't really hugely known programs, and they didn't really do stuff like that. However, you typically have to have a known trope in order to implant a memory. You know,
right?
The concept of alien abduction has to kind of exist.
Yeah. Nick Redford,
and that was one of the premier
research on
episodes.
This.
Yeah, that was one of the premier episodes of alien abduction.
Yeah,
one of the first cases. So how is it even a trope in society for them to be able to think about or grasp for you to be able to implant the memory?
Yeah. Nick Redfern, one of his books, he gets into this a little bit about Betty and Barney Hill, but he doesn't. He points out some of the weirdness and possibility of this being a MyLab. Possibility, but he's not ready to die on that hill either.
No.
You know, it just shows you what he's researched. You know what I'm saying?
There's physical evidence. Good Lord, there's the star map, man. That would have meant that somebody in my labs
be a pretty complicated one.
Knew that the star system existed in that way,
right,
and mapped it out and implanted it in her head.
Yeah,
you know, which means some scientist
I think
is
aliens
giving away
picked them
their
up.
aha moment, and I don't know that that's going to happen.
We're going to go to commercial break and open up the phone lines if you're good to stay on with us, Chris. We'll come back, open up the phone lines, guys. You got a question or experience? We're talking about experiences tonight, and we can cover any experience tonight. Bigfoot, UFO, ghosts, whatever. Let's talk about it with Christopher Jordan from Curious Realm tonight. Check it out. CuriousRealm.com is your website. I think I didn't give that out at the beginning.
You
so
are
I want to make sure
correct.
people know that. You can check that out during the commercial break, CuriousRealm.com. We'll be right back with Christopher Jordan after a short commercial break.
Into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Wrote spirits of the dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is 42. Yes, I thought it over quite thoroughly. It is, it's 42. It would have been simpler, of course, to have known what the actual question was.
But it was the question. The ultimate question. Of everything.
That's not a question. Only when you know the question will you know what the answer means.
You're listening to the Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID 00JBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Christopher Jordan from Curious Realm Podcast. You can go to curiousrealm.com to check out his website. Getting all different kinds of topics tonight, and I knew that would, because you got to check out his show. Christopher delves into all the same kind of topics we do and much more. And I'm really enjoying this conversation. I definitely want to get into. He also does binaural beats and solar system frequencies, brainwave frequencies, meditations. Love to get into that topic tonight. But you guys can direct where this show goes. You can call in and join this conversation, especially what kind of experiences have you had you'd love to share tonight. That's what I love. It's all about communicating, observing, and relaying the data and comparing notes, right? Christopher's a big fan of that. I am. Call in, join this conversation. But let's go ahead and get back to our guest. All right, phone lines should be open. We'll take your calls. Just remember to call in, and I hang up on you. It's because somebody else has called in before you. Just try calling again when they hang up. Christopher, thank you for sticking with us tonight. And we're getting a lot of different topics here. That's what I love.
Heck yeah, that's what it's about.
But you also, I'm always been interested in, I've tried my meditation when I was in my 20s, and I still do meditate a little bit here and there. Try to do more. I've been interested in getting into binaural beats. You want to talk a little bit about what that's about and how you produce this kind of meditation CDs?
Yeah. Binaural beats. I mean, they've become very, very popular. They've been around for a long time. The Monroe Institute is really the birthplace of the technology. They are really the ones that pioneered that work. People like Dr. Scott Taylor, stuff like that. Amazing individual. They do great work in it. And it basically stems from the principle in physics known as entrainment. This has been popularly shown in the pendulum experiment, specifically the experiments done on Mythbusters, where you take two pendulums, swing them opposite directions, and they eventually sync up. And then they fall out of sync, and then they sync up again, kind of like your blinker with the car in front of you. Things like that. Even my wife and I, you do it subconsciously with people around you, especially when you walk down hallways, things like that. Even if you're on a different stride and have a different stride and start on a different foot, you eventually sync up left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, and then you'll fall out again. Our brains strive for these patterns. It's a rote part of the way our brain works. Probably a good 60% to 70% of your life is lived in a state of rote hypnosis. If you drive to work for any decent amount of time, you're paying attention till you get on the freeway. And after that, you ever notice that you just automatically know when to get off?
Autopilot.
Yeah.
Some
you
people are
go
driving a
into-
little too much on autopilot lately, but yeah.
And it's pretty remarkable, a lot of this, especially when you start looking at things like it. And I'll explain binaural beat by preempting it with frequency therapy. When you start looking at things like pure tone frequency therapy, stuff like singing bowls, things like that is much more like sending your brain to the spa. Your brain will entrain with that
I
tone.
have some crystal
And-
singing bowls in different
and-
sizes.
They're great for you. They vibrate through you, things like that. And your brain will definitely lock into that frequency after a certain amount of time, however, as opposed to having to lock into the external frequency, binaural beats, let's say your singing bowl is at 528 hertz for love, things like that. Now, your binaural beat would be 2 offset frequencies. So instead of just giving your brain a tone of 528 hertz, you would give your right ear 529, your left ear 527. And what basically happens is the 2 offset beats, your brain eventually goes, it seems like it would be a lot easier if we just summed these two and created 528. So your brain actively begins generating the frequency on its own, which basically trains your brain to be able to generate the frequency when it needs it, as opposed to just locking into a frequency when it hears it. So one of them is like sending your brain to the gym, the other is like sending your brain for a massage. So binaural beats literally trains your brain to eventually begin creating that tone on its own when it needs it, as opposed to just responding when exposed to it.
Right.
So that's the difference.
Instinctively, all of a sudden, your brain will.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, because your brainwave frequencies operate in very specific bandwidths. When you're talking about delta frequencies, those are things like 1 hertz to 4 hertz, things like that. Those are deep sleep, deep REM sleep, that kind of stuff. Theta waves are in meditative states, that kind of thing.
What would be the hertz like for theta? Like, is there like a binaural beats that kind of puts you in like that theta state?
Oh, absolutely. And it would be just about any frequency from like 7 to 15 hertz. So a prime example that I use for that, like my last album, Experiencer, was an album that was made specifically to help people who have had close encounters of the 3rd and 4th kind, people who have been taken aboard craft, people that have been abducted, to help them not only release their PTSD and their trauma, but to use 7.8 hertz, which is the Schumann resonance, the heartbeat of the earth. So it literally reties you and regrounds you to the earth frequency, and trains your brain to look for that.
Does it help like with something like that, with them like recalling memories that they've been blocked? Or
it can because of course a part of that is going back through memories. So yes, you can definitely use frequencies to help recall memories. You can use frequencies to help regenerate healing faster, all kinds of things. It's pretty fascinating work. And once again, just to refer back to our previous conversation of the laser scientists, it's vibration. When you start looking at 9th grade science, like we're sharing an electron shell right now. By all known physics, we're 90% empty space. The only difference is a quantum field compresses that and compresses the atoms together, which is why we feel solid.
I think Tesla was onto that before they were coming into quantum physics. I think he was tapping into that.
Absolutely. And once again, going back to things like the yin yang, that kind of stuff. Generations of people have known this. Civilizations of people have known this, and we forget
it goes back to ancient civilizations. like
so rapidly.
Atlantis, you know.
I mean, good Lord, go show a 20-year-old an 8-track tape. See what they think it is, you know?
They don't even know what a CD is anymore.
Well, it's like this is a 1 terabyte thumb drive, and it's got computer schematics, all kinds of things. I could rebuild parts of civilization with this, but if I take it and throw it over my shoulder and it lands on a beach and then it gets found 1,000 years from now, do we even know what it is? Do we know how to recover the data on it?
Right.
You know,
because they believe crystals, quartz crystals were used by Lemurians or Atlanteans to store information. Well, we know we can do that. We know we can use quartz to do that. They're doing that now.
Yes, absolutely. The new quantum discs that they have made that can hold up to I think it's 30 terabytes of data.
Jesus,
something like that.
I think that's
an
just the tip of the
insane
iceberg.
amount.
What they'll do with that, though,
and it's quite literally the size of a quarter in thickness and width. It's pretty, and it's just a sliver of quartz. That's all it is. It's just a sliver of quartz.
I got to see the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull.
Ooh, cool.
That thing's amazing. The thing's amazing. The guy that owned it lived in my town.
Wow.
He owned it, I guess, is the carekeeper for, I shouldn't say own it,
Mm.
because he was given to him by, I think, Raheem Hedges.
But the daughter of Mitchell Hedges,
Hedges, gave it to him. My son went to his son's dojo,
wow.
martial arts dojo, but he had a whole showing of it years ago here in Michigan City, and I thought, man, imagine if that thing is just a big storage of information inside that skull. We just have to figure out how to hack into it.
Yes, and that's just it. How do you do this? And it can be done a lot of different ways. One of the things, like I was saying, targeted individuals, things like that. We are sensitive to a whole range of vibrations. And somebody mentioned in the chat I saw on YouTube about ELFs, so extremely low frequencies. Yes, those are things from 1 hertz and up. Now, granted, to transmit that, you would need an antenna about 6 miles long to transmit a 1 hertz signal.
Right.
So it's massively inefficient.
No.
We have some things I know, submarines use ELF frequencies to transmit things like that, to be able to get through water, that kind of stuff. So
look what they're saying with windmills that they're doing, that the windmills are affecting whales from the vibration. Of the windmill is affecting the sonar location of the whales.
That's just it. And I mean, we are intensely sensitive to frequency, and most people do not realize that. One of the albums that I'm currently working on is an album based on sacred spaces. And the first track that I'm working on right now is the King's Tomb, from the Great Pyramid of Giza. And one of the things as an audio engineer that you learn, especially in live audio, is how to calculate the resonant frequency of a room. That's where you start finding your first frequencies of feedback, your first frequencies of groans and moans and subwoofers and microphones and
the reverb,
things like that. So it's a wild calculation and involves the speed of sound divided by itself, divided by 2, all kinds of things. But basically you come to the fact after doing that the first resonant frequency of the King's Chamber is 19 hertz. And when you start looking at the effects of 19 hertz on the human body, 19 hertz is 1 hertz below the range of human hearing. Human hearing is 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. That's why you see that on really good headphones. That'll tell you that, like, as long as you have standard human hearing, you will hear the full range of the music that you're trying to listen to. But at the same token, 19 hertz, 1 hertz below, is right where the water in our eyes begins to vibrate. It's where distortion begins to happen in our vision. It's where visual hallucinations begin. It is the frequency that is frequently associated with the paranormal and the feeling of something else being in the room with you. So when you look at this space, this sacred space possibly being used as an initiation chamber, it definitely wasn't a tomb. if it was a tomb, whoever they put in there, they intended to have the fate of the mummy from Brendan Fraser's movie. You know,
right?
Like there are no sacred scrawls on the wall as to like how to have your heart measured by set against the weight of a feather to see if you get into the afterlife. No spells from the Book of the Dead. It's just blank walls. So
and
that soul is going nowhere. I don't care where
the one glyph
thing is pointing.
There's like one glyph in there that most likely was put by I can't think of his name. He was funded archaeologist back in the early 1900s that most likely put that glyph there because I mean they spent a ton of money for him to really find nothing, so he had to do something, right?
Yeah,
and he pretty much admitted to this, I think, in a later journal. I mean that's horrible. They've never let go of it though.
Yeah. No, and that's just it. And it's one of those. Whenever I have Stephen Myers from the Pharaoh's Pump Foundation on my show talking about it, it's one of those that is very interesting when you start getting into Egyptology because yes, it is almost very anti-science.
Yeah.
It's very fascinating to see how it is so indoctrinated and how the prime example is they keep pushing the narrative of that place being a tomb. It's like, you cannot tell me that according to ancient Egyptian religion that you ain't going anywhere without your soul being weighed, and you can't do that without these sacred writings, and they ain't in the tomb.
Yeah.
So,
no,
that
exactly.
doesn't make sense to me.
It's not a tomb. I don't think most people nowadays, except for the archaeologists, don't believe it was a tomb, but they're at war with everybody else on that has an interest in this.
Yes.
And that's what's crazy to me, that they won't let go of this. They won't investigate. It's not the only place in the world. It has a lot to do with culture and protecting cultural heritage. I get that. You know, you don't want to people be offended.
Yeah.
But look at what Graham Hancock's running into.
Yep. Yeah.
All the time in that show.
Yeah. And, you know, somebody mentioned in the chat about piezoelectric quartz, and that's something that I bring up pretty regularly about the King's Tomb because I do have a hypothesis for the King's Tomb. If you're looking at it, especially a cutaway view, there are two shafts that come out of the King's Tomb that are almost equidistant, but not quite, and they also have baffles inside of them. So if you consider the piezoelectric properties of quartz, the idea that if you compress quartz, it will release a charge.
Yes.
You know, even if you vibrate quartz enough, because once again, striking it will do the same thing. One of the main key components of granite is quartz. And you also have an amazing thing in there called carbon. So you layer that with the carbon and the mica and the quartz, and you basically got a really cool capacitor going on. It's pretty interesting.
Well, to me, I think it's way older than what they think too. That we can get into that. You know, that's the thing.
When you use these two tubes specifically, think about it kind of like blowing on a straw, you know, and moving the straw to change the pitch. You've got two tubes that are going out from the King's chamber to the outside that are slightly different, kind of the same way that a binaural beat is slightly offset.
To create that resonant frequency inside.
My concept is that it was actively used as a binaural beat initiation chamber.
That's it. I mean, that it could be.
Which the compression waves and things like that created by the sound coming in, everything else could be enough to build up and possibly crack things like the stone of the sarcophagus, that kind of stuff. It explains why the sarcophagus has no lid. You know, but if you're compressing the waves in there, you would absolutely be creating a piezoelectric property inside of that tomb chamber.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could do all kinds of things. We know that they electroplated gold, which takes a slightly electronic process. You know, you have to have power in order to do that. Very small voltages, not a lot.
I think they had light bulbs.
1 to 3 volts. I think they had something at least equivalent to light bulb, if anything, probably closer to an LED, especially with the amount of power that they were dealing with. Because once again, we know that they had the Baghdad battery, which puts out at least enough as a AA battery. So
and they're going into places that are getting lower on oxygen. You're not going to, and they don't even see the carbon imprints from the where they would have to have torches or things. They had to have some kind of light in there.
Now, the King's Chamber does have some scorching inside of it.
There is.
And that's one of the things that I bring out is kind of imagine using a chemical process, basically using that coffin, that sarcophagus in there as a vat. So yes, by using the chemical electrolytic processes of compressing that with sound waves, you could totally separate hydrogen and oxygen.
Right.
And
they
be
can
able
use
to
sound to do it.
Yeah. You use sound to do it for the microvoltage and piezoelectricity to do it instead of 2 leads and a battery.
Yeah.
You know?
My opinion is I think that those pyramids have been there way longer than they
Oh,
think.
yeah.
I think the Egyptian culture grew up around those pyramids and tried to recapture it and repeat it by building smaller ones.
Yep.
But they were like, at one point, this theme gave power, to a civilization, and now the recouped civilization doesn't know how to use it.
Well, and it doesn't take long. Once again, the example I normally give is I am Cajun. It is one of the only languages native to North America. It is an unchanged form of court French from the 15th century. You are hard-pressed to find Cajuns my mother's age. I'm 49. You're hard-pressed to find Cajuns my mother's age who can speak Cajun. One generation. That's all it took. One generation being told, don't speak that language at school. It's the language of the ignorant field hand.
Yep.
There are paintings
Native
of the
American
little
languages
Cajun
that
kids
way.
sitting in the corner with a dunce hat for speaking French at school.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. So one generation of shaming people has almost destroyed one of the only languages indigenous to America.
I mean, and conquerors would conquest lands and make people switch over to a new language or a new religion, and all these things get lost and destroyed. We've seen that.
Yeah.
I mean, with the conquistadors, what they did to the Mayan civilization, everything that was lost.
There is a prime example in modern time, though, even up to World War II in Eastern Europe, where they came across a mass grave of thousands of people. And they asked people, they couldn't find out what it was. Nobody knew. And it was literally a camp from the Nazis and a bunch of people that were locally gunned down and buried in a mass grave. And literally everybody just collectively decided to forget about it.
Yeah.
To the point that when they found it all of 15, 20 years ago, nobody knew what happened. Nobody locally knew what that was about.
That's
so
crazy.
It doesn't take long to just forget it. People think that it's going to take tens of thousands of years or something like, oh, no. Without curation,
civilization to fall apart.
Yeah. 50 years ago, you could have taken a 6x6 plank of wood to somebody and probably gotten about 4 or 5 quotes on a spiral column for your garden. Try going out there now. You'd probably find 4 or 5 people that could 3D print it for you.
Yeah.
But 4 or 5 people that could hand carve a wooden column, pretty hard pressed to find that skill set, and it existed not too long ago.
Well, when you talk about technology and where we're going and all that stuff, I worry that we end up some kind of dystopian future like Idiocracy.
Oh,
this is big. I mean, pretty much they're getting there. I know.
We'll make me get into the fact that we've already had a wrestler as president.
Yeah, right. I was like, I will take Terry Crews as President Camacho over anybody right now.
That's
honestly.
Right. What plans crave? but in all sincerity, it's not that far of a leap, man.
No, that's
even
the scary
even talking
thought.
about AI, people get very scared, and I understand that. I get it. We've been indoctrinated to a lot of movies that really give AI a lot of power. However, when you consider your average AI and what it's being used for in ChatGPT and things like that, please reconsider the source of the data that it's getting its data from.
Right.
It's pulling its data from the same internet that the average person is. So it will eventually be as intelligent as the average person reading the internet, which is either fantastic or really horrifying.
Well, most of the time they hook it up to the internet, it decides it wants to destroy humanity. Right?
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah, that's just it. You think it does now. Wait till it becomes sentient and sees the images of us like kicking its bipedal ancestors, trying to knock it over. The fact that we used them just for sex bots and manual labor. You remember how that slavery thing worked out? How'd that go?
Well, I mean, look, in Terminator 3,
Yeah.
you find out Skynet's just not some computer stored away. It's the internet. It's in the internet.
Yeah,
and
it's
what
the
does it do? It
collective knowledge
decides
of
that
the
humans
internet.
need to be destroyed. You know,
Yeah.
I just hate having to try to read the Chat GPT articles every Wednesday with the horrible grammar.
Well, and that's just it. That's just it. You can spot it. You can see it. And even I'll even admit, like, you got AI bombed tonight. Part of a good 3/4 of my bio is written by AI. And then it's curated and edited and things like that. But yeah, my bio is written by AI. It's a pretty dang good sounding bio.
I'm not saying people shouldn't use it or that we can't. It's just dependency.
It's where it's pulling the data from. And the prime example would be Tay. The AI that I think it was probably up around 2016, 2017 that Microsoft released Tay into the wild on Twitter. And within 24 hours pulled it. It started with the intelligence of about a 9-year-old girl. It was a female. And by the time they pulled the plug, it was about intelligent as an 18 to 20-year-old, except it was a raving racist.
Yeah.
Because it was only fed
it fed
Twitter.
the internet.
No,
Right,
it was only fed
Twitter. That's all I needed, right? It's Twitter. Like,
so they were
let's
like,
not
wow.
hook up AI to the internet. If that's its only input, we're in big trouble. We're in big trouble.
And that's just it. It's the fact of, like, even we one of the projects I took on recently was transferring an entire archive of the International UFO Bureau of Hayden Hughes for MUFON. And within that, I archived, I think it was close to 40 hours of video footage on the Heaven's Gate case. It was a ton of video footage. Like, it ran for 2 days capturing while I was scanning documents. And in the background, it was just all of this news footage about Heaven's Gate and everything with that. And if you remember that story, that was like 1997. The beginnings of the internet, the beginnings of HTTP protocol, that kind of stuff. Just past the point of hard bulletin board chat rooms where you had to dial into a number, to get into something. And the two things that experts kept talking about, computer experts and sociologists, was the lonely people on the internet who cruise these groups and are looking for a place to belong, looking for a sense of belonging, that don't know how to filter information and don't know how to filter fact from fiction, reality from fantasy. And the other one was the fact that the internet was full of all these things that are real and full of all these things that are fake. And so many people do not know how to filter between the two. Now, this was 1997. We are almost 30 years down the line from that right now. We are dealing with the same exact situation. The only difference is there's more information.
Yeah.
And
more
even
technology
now,
to fool you.
To make this video, you had to click a box that said that you did not alter this content, that this content is not AI generated, that you have not misrepresented the message of this content or of the people in it by editing it or putting a false mask over my face to make me say the stuff like the Eminem videos right now. Those I had my friend send me that, where it's literally like a face-up video of Eminem talking about, like, chord structure. Like, Eminem doesn't know chord structure like that. He's talking about, like, diminished minors, and when you do this, it's going to go to the C7.
This is an AI video
his
of
mouth
Eminem?
is synced, totally AI, totally AI generated, utterly fake, totally not real. You can sit and watch that, and I challenge you to watch the mouth and try to find the seams, try to find the place where it ain't synced.
Oh, it's getting. I say this all the time. That's what it comes to, in the paranormal anymore. People always looking for the video proof to prove Bigfoot or ghost or life. There's no land of illusion. Nothing can be believed anymore.
One of the things that I'd say I almost preach about, not only on my show, but when I speak publicly, is the idea of evidence. please, data. You have data, okay? Evidence exonerates you in court. Never let it be less than that. The day that you have deadlocked evidence means you have gone through the scientific process, means you have peer-reviewed articles, means you have other people's eyes on this. Things like that. There's a different realm of expectation for evidence. So coming home from an investigation overnight with evidence is a hard-pressed term, you know?
Yeah.
Please, data. You have tons of data. And data is good. And once again, we need more data. We need more red circles. We need more things to prove the known quantitative so that we're only left with the phenomenon, you know? But once again, we have to be willing to have that mutual conversation.
Yeah.
On both sides of it. Scientists have to be ready to listen, you know?
But that's what I'm saying, though, is like, as of, back, I love the older video evidence nowadays, the old VHS recorded UFO video or paranormal activity, but nowadays you worry about anything being digitally manipulated. I mean, they talk about it with the elections, but watch out, there's going to be something fake video that's going to come out there, one of the candidates saying something that's not them real.
There was the one
that's
that was just released of Joe Biden at a thing, you know, and utterly AI generated. Like that is not an actual clip, man. You know,
that's what I'm saying. We live in that world now.
The problem that we have, though. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, they had the one where they made him appear to be talking about a draft, and so many people got scared, and it looked so legit if you didn't know.
That's just it. And I mean, it was 2015 when Dudes and Beer covered in an episode the technology from Adobe. And I remember I could probably dig up the quote where I said, "This will change Hollywood." As someone who works in media, this will change Hollywood contracts. And it's quite literally what led to the last writer's strike.
Yep. You got Robert Downey Jr. out there threatening to sue anybody that ever digitally recreates him.
It's what allowed James Earl Jones to sell the rights to his voice in perpetuity. 20 years from now, Darth Vader will still be voiced by James Earl Jones.
Yep.
You know, and his family will get royalties because the technology that Adobe invented. And I remember it was Jordan Peele that was up on stage, and he came out and was talking about his dog and how much he loved his dog. And they were like, "We had a conversation with you and your dog earlier. Let's hear it." And he starts talking about how he kisses his dog in the mouth with the tongue before he leaves. And he's like, "Well, I didn't say that." But with 20 minutes of him talking, it picks up his meter, it picks up his inflections. And as long as you're typing it, and typing it with the proper commas and spacing, it will say it just like Jordan Peele. And that was 2015.
But now you have scammer calls. You have scammer calls where, I mean, we covered this on World Wide Web Weird, where they get the sound of the person's family member's voice and has them call and talk to, like, I'm in jail or I need this or whatever. They get the person's voice down and everything.
They just go to YouTube or any social media, get the sound bites right off of that.
And that's just it. Once again, all you need is 20 minutes of somebody talking. So if you have a political character that has been doing interviews, all you need is 20 minutes. Clip them together, put it into the AI, and now it'll say anything you want in their voice.
Yeah.
You know? And that, once again, has been, I don't think it was widely released by Adobe, but that was 2015 that was in beta testing with them.
Right. Yeah, you know where it's at
so
now.
that is not new technology. That is decade old at this point. You know, and was well tested and well vetted at that point.
Well, now what they want to do, I've covered this a couple of times with some different companies that are coming up with AI simulations of your loved ones. Where it'll be the digital afterlife, in a sense, a recreation of your loved one that you can, and they got the holographic chamber where it can make your loved one literally feel like they're standing right and physically in front of you, and they can talk to you and do all this. You know,
we are actively working on a Hayden Hughes bot for the Hayden Hughes archive, where we will input all of his writings and everything else, and train a bot in the mentality of Hayden Hughes, so that you can actively ask the investigator, Hayden Hughes,
This is
things
like
about
with, you know,
the
Data
paranormal.
going into the holodeck and going, I want to have Albert Einstein come here and we're going to discuss physics,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, we're going to do
You know?
some thought experiments. Absolutely. And that's just it. There are amazing uses of it. Like one of the subscriptions that I purchased, which I love. Oh my God, I love it. I'm going to hip you to this right now. It's called Sci Summary. And it is made specifically for research scientists. I think it was like whenever I got it, it was like a lifetime for $300. I was so impressed that I was like, I'll take a lifetime. Because what it is basically it only works off the data you give it. So it doesn't pull its data off the internet. Now, granted, you could give it 18 different links on the internet to scholarly papers on liver enzymes, and then ask it to give you 1,000-word summary on liver enzymes and 10 bullet points. And it will summarize all of those into 1,000 words with 10 bullet points. So it's awesome when you're doing that kind of research. If you have 10, 15 case files that you want to feed into the AI from your paranormal investigations at the same place and be like, what are the similarities between these things? It'll give them to you. If you have a guest book that you just don't have the time to read all of it, you could be like, hey, here's the
Give me
PDF.
the bullet points.
Here's the PDF. Give me a 500-word summary and 10 bullet points.
Again, this is back to Star Trek. You know, they would,
Yeah.
you know, go to the computer, analyze, put it in all the data, and the voice would
Now-
come back with some kind of analysis.
Now, do I still read the first 150 pages of the book? Darn tootin'. But hey, this gives me a whole lot more information and workflows things a whole lot easier, even for my archiving work that I did for MUFON and stuff like that. I had ChatGPT write me a script that used a software to embed it basically took the PDF files from a source folder and in mid-transfer to a destination folder, used this software to take this watermark file and embed it on every page of the PDF as it dropped it in. And when it didn't start doing every page, I was like, hey, ChatGPT, look at this code you wrote. It's only marking the first page. Fix that. Okay, well, look at these commands. Check this out for next time. Here's the new code. Try it out. Like I kept feeding it back into ChatGPT until it finally fixed itself. You know, like I could have gladly paid one of my coding friends $500-600 if they had the time. I gave it over to a couple of them when it started having page issues. And I was like, okay, I've gotten it to this point. I've saved you a lot of time. I'll give you $100 if you can fix this line of code for me that'll do this one thing.
What's your thoughts though now too? Because we're also moving into the robotic age.
Yeah.
And you know, you're seeing the Tesla robot being unveiled now. We covered that on the show, how they were being remotely controlled at this event that he had recently.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell they were being remotely controlled. But this is just fundraiser demonstration.
Yep.
Trust me, they are on to ready to have these things be walking controlled all on their own.
Yep.
And they don't need to put a big brain computer inside of these things to do it. They can have them hooked up to a Wi-Fi signal that they generally are working off of.
People forget. Honestly, I mean, and you know, he's an odd duck. He's right down the road from us here in Austin. Elon's an odd duck for certain folks.
Yeah.
But number one, make no mistake, you find very few inventors out there or industrialists that leave their patents open to the public.
Exactly.
I don't see GE leaving their patents open to or Raytheon leaving their patents open to the public to better humanity.
Raytheon, great example. Yeah, right?
Yeah. GE, we bring good bombs to life. You know, yeah. You don't
just don't let them get into 0 point energy. We'll never hear from Elon again.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of this stuff, even the electronic vehicles, stuff like that, tracks right back to his stated goal many years ago of mission to Mars.
Yeah.
So in order to get those people to Mars, you can't just send a bunch of people to build a radioactive proof city.
Nope.
You know, to deal with the space radiation of the thinned atmosphere of Mars. You can't do that. You need robots to be able to go with a few people that are willing to risk themselves and a little bit of tech
never come
to
back,
help keep them clean and stuff like that, to maintain the robots, to maintain the electric fleet, to bring in new things that are coming in, that kind of stuff. But yeah, all of his automation. everything else, even automation of Tesla vehicles, all that tracks right back to take it to
his
Mars.
ultimate goal. Yeah, his ultimate
Take it to
goal.
Mars.
But what he's talking about, I mean, he admits will revolutionize society if these robots come about. He's like, it'll only cost me $20,000. Okay, well, that ain't gonna be me gonna get R2D2 here or C3PO.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Go out and buy a family van, man.
Right. I mean, he said as much as your car, you're less than your car you buy. Yeah, I know they're so damn expensive. I drive a 2007 Impala, and I'm driving that thing till death. Okay, buddy. You know
when you start doing that average calculation though of how much does it cost for daycare for your 8-year-old?
Right. Well, yeah, it'll watch your children. I don't know about you. I'm a parent, okay, and no, it's not watching my children. It's not watching my children. I'm sorry. I don't care how good this thing is, Elon. It's not. Maybe your children in your compound can be watched by robots. I bet they are.
Yeah.
But he's got plenty. He probably needs robots to watch all those children. But me, I'm going to personally do it or give it to people I personally trust. Well, yeah. Or I saw one article where it shows the robot watching somebody as they sleep. It'll watch you as you sleep. No, just no.
That's all good. I'd go to Craigslist, a whole lot cheaper for that.
I grew up in the 80s as a kid, and I remember the Runaway, I think it was, where a Tom Selleck movie. You remember where the toasters are killing people? I mean, I'm just saying, I grew up in the 80s where we were told these things are going to kill us, so I'm a little uncomfortable with watching over me sleep. You know, Terminator, Runaway, you know, these movies really influenced me. I'm sorry, Elon. You didn't watch them, I guess. I did. And I'm a little concerned about... I'm all for the technology. Like, there's things like, you know, like transhumanism is a thing that concerns me, but at the same time, the technology that he's coming up with the implants in the brain and all that could be revolutionizing for people that have major disabilities.
Absolutely.
It could totally help blind people see. It could help people walk. It could never walk again. I'm all for that.
It is the idea of the tool is also a weapon.
Oppenheimer.
You know, I don't think anybody. Prime example. Nobody really considered a box cutter that dangerous until 2001.
Yeah.
And we saw that like 8 box cutters could change the world.
Yep.
You know, change the way you fly for the rest of your life. 8 box cutters, and some dude with an underwear bomb. You know, so yeah, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to catalyze a change or to cause a change. Yeah. Even going back to the beginning of our conversation of the Revolutionary War, less than 20% of the standing public took part in the Revolutionary War. The rest of the people were like, please stop.
Yeah. Just trying to live my life and grow my food.
Yeah.
You know?
So it doesn't take a mass number. We don't have to change the mass consciousness of humanity to have a paradigm shift. That's the good news.
I see these robots, if they come about, as a major shift like the smartphone. You know, if they do come about like something out of Black Mirror or you know, iRobot is very much, it looks like he was ripping off in his demonstration, right? You know, even if they don't turn on us or become evil or any of that stuff, it's going to change society. I'm a big fan of science fiction. I read the Expanse books. I'm reading those, and I've seen the TV show. You notice in that, they have so much technology. They have all these people that don't work. They have a whole society on UBI, you know, Universal Basic Income, and that these people have are literally trapped in their communities, have nothing to do. It's a very poor outlook for Earth at that point. You know, if the whole they took our jobs thing really could happen here.
Even that whole aspect, man, the idea of UBI, like a hand up is not a handout. And if we made 10 less F-35 Raptors next year, we could provide universal basic income and shelter for everybody. We could do it. We just have to actively allocate the funds to do it. We have to give a crap enough to collectively say, enough of that, let's make that happen.
No. We're a corporate state. It's about milking it off the American people as much as we can, not helping people.
Well, and sadly, we are also humanity, man. We are faulted sacks of flesh. As St.
My worry
Augustine
about my worry about universal basic income is like what the Expanse points out in their dystopian future, in a sense, is that these people have no voice, no power, and no ability, no hope, because all they are just dependent on is what the government gives them. And that is the scariest thought in the world to me.
it can be that way, and that's just it.
I love the Star Trek version of things.
It does.
Like, if we could get to the Gene Roddenberry version of things, that'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be epic, but that also precludes the fact that, I mean, it's kind of like when people like Dr. Greer say that there are no aliens with ill intent. It's like, I don't know.
I don't know about that, Dr. Greer. I have some disagreements on that.
I'm pretty sure that there are dogs that just bite, despite any upbringing,
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there are humans that despite upbringing are still dicks.
Yeah. And if you're like somebody like me, and my opinion on a lot of ancient, like, Old Testament stuff is it's aliens, a lot of it,
Sure.
in my opinion.
Sure.
I see a lot of that as that, and if it was, they killed people. Sodom and Gomorrah, if that was not God, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's this chance. We do have somebody on the phone line. I want to get their call before we go to our last commercial break. Who do we got on the line? You're on
Hello?
air. Hey, you're here. We hear you.
Oh, this is Siriana, Jason.
Siriana.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great. You?
Good. I'm trying to understand the frequencies you were
like the
talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. I've had a couple of experiences. Well, I've been abducted since the age of 5, and I never. Well, the first time, I'm trying to make it sound rational.
Take your time. It's a hard topic to talk about, and thank you very much for sharing your experience.
Oh, you're welcome. From the age of 5 to adulthood, I was abducted by. The Greys would take me to the ship, and they were the tall white Nordic ones, aliens. And I did not have an implant at that time. And when I was done with them, out of my choice, I thought I was all through with them.
Okay.
And it started again. And now I do have an implant. And I recently had some kind of testing, and they had to do an ultrasound. And they went on the area of where the implant was. And it broke the machine. The machine just quit.
Wow.
And I mean, I had the lab technician. The lab technician was freaked out. He got his boss. The boss came in. The boss didn't know what to do. They were unplugging and replugging and trying to test all the equipment and whatever else. And in the meantime, my leg was, I could feel it moving again. This new implant, I don't know what it is, but I think but it moves. And I haven't figured out why yet, but it does move. And I don't know if it was threatened by the ultrasound. I mean, we're pretty primitive with our stuff, I think, And that's I was kind of laughing, going, yeah, okay, you touched it. There you go. That's what you get, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But that was the first one experience. The second comment that I have is that when I astral travel, I astral traveled to a crystal cave.
Okay.
And this crystal cave has like all sorted colors with these crystals in it. But I call it vibration, not frequency.
Sure.
The frequency in there is, well, it's awesome. And I mean, the energy level is, I can't even explain it.
Yeah.
You know? And I go, and occasionally when I go there, it's to either heal or make me aware of what's going on in the world or on Earth, that kind of thing. It's not alien related at all. It's something else.
Spiritual.
Right. And I do believe that it's connected to Lemuria, Atlantis, and Egypt.
Okay.
That's what I've tried to rationalize. I don't know if you have any comments or any opinions, but those are my experiences.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, of course, crystals, once again, as we were discussing earlier, were greatly known for their uses in Lemuria and Atlantis, things like that. But when it comes down to frequency and vibration, the two are quite literally the same thing. Frequency is just the actual physical count of number of vibrations or cycles per second. That's the only difference. The vibration is what you feel. The frequency is the actual count.
The count.
Like 528 hertz would be telling you that whatever that object is vibrating 528 times per second. So one is a representation of the other. And yes, when it comes to colors, everything else, a lot of people, even my industry, where I deal with lighting and audio engineers, there's always fun fights between lighting and audio when it comes to rock and roll and events. And I always tell them, like, please, everybody, let's remember we're all in the same spectrum here. Every sound has a color associated to it. Like every color has a note associated to it. That's how chakras work and how vibrational frequency therapy works and light therapy and things like that. So yeah, the two are intrinsically connected. Even when you start looking at people, the example I normally give is folks like Maureen Seberg, the author of Fearful and Wonderfully Made. She is a tetrachromic.
Yeah. She can see sound.
Well, not just that,
sound,
but that would be synesthetic.
That's
which is part of tetrachromia also.
Right.
But tetrachromia specifically is the fact of, in addition to red, green, blue, you see the yellow spectrum.
She sees right. That's it.
So she sees 4 spectrums, which means she has an entire palette of like an additional 1 million colors. My color purple is totally different to her. She sees things almost like a parrot does. So it's fascinating. Like even colors and the frequency of color is totally different for her because of the way her brain perceives color. So it's
I've
pretty
heard of her. That's
fascinating.
amazing.
It's very interesting. And the fact that those vibrations are there, all of us just can't see them. She's able to actively see that vibration. So it's pretty remarkable, and even when you start looking at the electromagnetic spectrum itself, feel free to just Google that and Google visible light. And inside that spectrum of visible light also lies our audible hearing, but it's only a couple of nanometers within the electromagnetic spectrum out of the about 6 inches on a screen that it takes up. What we see and hear is a tiny little slice. So yeah, we are very, very narrow band receptors when it comes to the world around us and how we receive and take that in and process that information. And yeah, we all process that differently. That's why you walk into a party with 3 different people and one of them might be like, I don't know, something just feels weird here. Something feels off.
It can cut to tension with a knife, right? In the air. You can feel it, right?
Yeah. And the others are utterly unaware.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Yeah. Could I say something else, or
Go ahead. We got like a minute here for a commercial break.
Okay. Would the Earth's frequency? I always hear a dull, low frequency hum, and I always say it's the Earth's, vibrational thing, and it never.
There is,
yeah. However, that would be in the frequency that you would feel, not necessarily hear.
Right.
You would have to have hearing about 3 or 4 times better than a dog to actively hear 7.8 hertz, the realm at which the Earth vibrates.
Right. But her body feeling
could
could translate it.
You would
translate
feel
it.
Absolutely.
But what I'm saying. But the mind could translate that data.
Yes.
And give it a sound in her head.
Your brain would absolutely pick up the resonant frequency through the resonant chamber of your skull. However, your ears would not pick up that vibration. They are not sensitive enough to vibrate at that low of a frequency to audibly hear it. But your brain would absolutely transduce that to you. The example that I normally give for 7.8 hertz is that it is right around the frequency of a cat's purr that you feel instead of hear. So if you've ever had a cat lay on your chest and you can hear them purring, but you feel something different, that's close to 8 hertz.
Yeah.
A beautiful healing frequency, one of the things that they associate with a cat's long and many lives. And they still don't know how they generate that frequency fully. It's pretty mysterious, but that's the example I normally give people of. There's other octaves of that frequency that you're hearing come out of the cat, but the one that you're feeling is the one that is inaudible to you, that your body can still feel and pick up. So yes, you're absolutely a beautiful, amazing saline transducer of a receptor. And our bodies pick up all kinds of vibrations that our brains cannot hear and that our eyes cannot see.
All right, Zarian, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you for that. Great question.
Thank you. Have an awesome night, everybody. Thank you.
All right, guys, we're going to last commercial break. We'll be at less than a half hour left with our guest, Christopher Jordan of Curious Realm. We'll take your phone calls when we come back from the short commercial break, so just hang in there when we come back. We'll try to see if we can fit any other extra phone calls. We got more to talk about with our guest, Christopher Jordan, after the short commercial break.
Intercepted the transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated. I don't want to hear it.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're gonna go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college, I've got a family to support, and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come
Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Heat 'em up. Do, re, be gone.
You're listening to the Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID 00JBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Christopher Jordan from Curious Realm Podcast. Like I said, we got in a lot of different topics tonight, but that's what I love. I love guests when we do this. I'm just not a guy that writes down pre-questions or whatever. I like to have a conversation with my guests, and Christopher is an awesome guest to do that with because there's so many things to talk about. And feel free tonight. The phone lines are now back open. If you want to join in before we end the show here in the last half hour and join this conversation, feel free. Join us. Discuss. Tell us about your experiences. Great call from Missouriana. Thank you so much. Don't forget, guys, too, you want to show your support for the show. We are a super chat for YouTube does help out. Patreon, you can find me under Patreon the link for the show. You'll find our Patreon link there. And PayPal donations, Jason Bland 730 is my PayPal account. Any of these things do. Thank you to my patrons. You do help support this show. Thank you so much. And keep sharing the show and telling people about Paranormal Soup where the weird happens live. Got a lot more to get to, a little bit of time left, so let's go ahead and get back to our guests. Thank you for sticking around with us this late at night, Christopher.
You bet.
You know, I don't know if you heard some of my advertisement in there, Dreamscape. Remember that movie from the 80s?
Oh, God, yeah, man. Dennis
Well,
Quaid.
they recently had that experiment where they had two people sleeping where they could communicate and sync up. You know that brains they've studied sync up when people talk or in communication. Now they're doing this where they think people have conjoined sleep dreams together.
yeah.
I've had that experience. I've been married to
same.
my wife for 21 years,
Same.
and we've had a couple of dreams we've shared. So I believe in this.
I have had shared dream experience before in my life. There is definitely the MIT experiments that have been done where, yes, they have not only queried dreamers, but the dreamers have answered in the experiments. There have been insertion of dreams
Yeah.
already. There has been consideration of ads in dreams.
They did that in Futurama, remember?
Yeah.
You ever seen that Futurama? He gets the ad for the underwear in his dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even to the point of the recent experiment that was carried out at I believe it was Harvard Medical, where they used some people that actively had brain implants that were implanted with cerebral stimulation to help stop They were basically had electrodes to help stop seizures. And during an experiment, while bringing them in to check on things and everything else, they actively used this data transmitter to receive their brain waves while they were listening to a Pink Floyd song, then had them come back about a week or so later and simply think about the song that they heard last time they were in the MRI. And over a few people, over a few days, were able to recreate the Pink Floyd song from people's memory only.
Yeah.
Pretty remarkable. It sounds kind of creepy.
That's the stuff
remarkable.
I ate up as a kid. My favorite movies when I was a kid, like Brainstorm, Christopher Walken, where they can record the thoughts and then the lady dies and they put that on their head.
Yeah.
Dreamscape, Altered States, like all these scenes that explore consciousness, like as a kid fascinated me. And now we're reaching that time where we're experimenting with these things. It's like scary and fascinating, but it fascinated me. That we could, to me, the last real, we can explore space and the deep oceans we haven't, but the consciousness to me is like the really undiscovered country.
Well, and once again comes to that point of vibration and connection and the idea that remote viewing had so long ago, that we are connected. We are connected in a way beyond time, beyond space, that we are a beautiful resonant part of the chord of the universe. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change form. So once you start vibrating at a different octave, you will no longer attract these physical particles. You will move to another dimension, and other realities will happen, and other things will happen, and your energy will continue and create other things,
or be reborn. I'm a big believer in reincarnation,
or come back here,
experiences.
So it's fascinating and it's interesting, because those things are connected. We are fully connected to all of these things.
Have you had experiences with the binaural beats, like certain frequencies or meditation states that help people recall past lives?
There has definitely been some work into that. There has definitely been some work with the Monroe Institute and IANS experiencers, people who have had near-death experience, and some work being done in that. The idea of binaural beats being able to possibly induce a near-death type experience, that kind of thing. I have definitely crafted works. My album Music for Meditation and Cosmic Journeys Volume 1 has a track on it that is specifically made for astral projection, astral travel, things like that, to bring your brain to the point of generating those frequencies to help assist with that.
I wonder, because I had 2 points in my early 20s where I had 2 very vivid dreams I know showed me a past life. It was so physical, so real to me. Explains a lot about why I'm wired the way I am. My youngest son, who's going to be turning 9 in January, ever since he could talk, would talk about seeing bodies on a hill. And he'd be like, I'm a horrible person. He'd have these meltdowns when he could just barely talk and say, bodies on the hill. I see the bodies on the hill. Even this last year, he had a breakdown and started talking about it. And I'm like, can you tell me anything that comes to mind? Just picture what you're telling me you see. And tell me what words come to mind. He said, a name. Do you have a name or anything that comes to mind? And he goes, all I can hear is Colmar. And sounds familiar, and did my research. And he's always been fascinated by soldiers. And what he's telling me is he was a soldier. And his friends left him. They abandoned him. And it was cold. And there was bodies on this hill. Well, the only thing I can think when he said Colmar, it kind of sent shivers on my spine. There was Colmar Pocket, was a battle in France in World War II from 44, whatever, I think. Went from November, December 44 into January. It was the end of the war, and German troops were abandoning this main hill they were fighting. It was like Hill 16, I think it was. It was a bloody hand-to-hand combat battle, very much like what he says. And the Nazis were starting to defect, leave because they were losing and they were out of supplies. It's very much like what he sounds like. He's trying to tell me. So, I mean, some in my household we're open about, like the idea of past lives. We're very open spirituality.
Yeah.
But this is the idea, the consciousness that doesn't just get destroyed or change or it just changes. It changes into a new form.
Well, even when you start looking at the cases of shared memory from amputees, things like that, the cases of people who have new memories and new likes and dislikes after having a heart transplant,
right? Oh yeah,
that kind of stuff.
There's like
suddenly developed a love for jazz music, hated it my whole life. Ends up that the person that donated the heart was a jazz musician.
One person
like
married the wife of the person he got the heart from.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, and
that's somebody's frequency
Yeah.
inside somebody's body. It changed them.
Yeah. Well, and the idea that somebody's frequency is locked into that cellular structure.
Right.
Because we forget, like I just mentioned to the caller, frequency is vibration. It's just a representation of the vibration.
Well, if you take the holographic universe principle, every element can be found in the smallest element, replicated or the fractal of it.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
I mean, and that heart is part of that person. That they transplanted. There's an old, I think there's a 90s movie where a person gets like a transplant from a serial killer. And of course now they're trying to fight off being a serial killer, But that's the idea, that these things that's energy and vibration of somebody else in your body.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's just it. The idea that to bring it back full circle, the idea that our thought can change that. The idea that what we believe and who we believe we are intrinsically changes our vibration and the way our body imprints that. I had a great guest that I met at the Remote Viewing Association conference last year in Virginia, Jan Nassari. And he has a great concept called the carbonic universe. The idea that you are a diamond vehicle. We are all made of carbon. We exhale carbon, and carbon amongst everything can have a fixed frequency and takes frequency very well. So the idea that with every breath that you take, that you are exhaling your vibration into the world attached to your carbon dioxide, but also the fact that you have a chance to rebuild and replace your carbon in that kind of way and be reborn with every breath. It's a pretty fantastic and beautiful concept, that really kind of tracks scientifically when you start considering the fact that we with every breath are exhaling our vibration into the world with fixed carbon that comes right out of us. And when you start looking at that, especially in relation to, things like Kabbalah, that kind of stuff, the idea that we amongst all creation, amongst all critters crawling on the earth, were breathed into uniquely by the divine that created us. So that thereby gives us the same way that divine creator spoke the universe into being and breathed life into us. We can breathe life. We can change the world around us with our words.
Yeah, I try to teach that to my children all the time because they say things. I'm like, don't say that.
That's right.
Don't say that.
Your words hold more power than your actions. I could come up to you if we knew each other well enough, Jason. I could come up to you as a guy and punch you in the gut and be like, "Got you, buddy." But let me say something about your mom or your wife and let that fester and let you keep thinking about it. It goes beyond that punch in the gut at that point. It goes beyond the world of physical hurt. It can go to the point of destruction. It can go to the point of destruction of your mentality, of your daily life, everything else.
This comment here. When Gates says carbon needs to be close to zero, what do you think?
Well, maybe it means that our vibration needs to change also. Because we are stuck in a pretty low vibratory state right now as a humanity. And one of the things I've talked about regularly on the show here in the last few months is a study that I found that was done by the National Institute of Health right toward the end of COVID, actually about the adverse affect on the brain of negative news cycles.
Yeah.
And the idea that negative news cycles actively cause a bruising action to the hippocampus of your brain.
I believe
now, what that means, the hippocampus is that nice little glove that surrounds your amygdala. The amygdala is the source of that reptilian fight or flight response, that fear response that we have that was beautifully placed into us for survival. That gut feeling of something's wrong. Maybe a cougar's watching over your shoulder because the fire just went out. These feelings kept us alive for millennia. Now, because we're reticent, it's the source of anxieties for people like me, stuff like that. So it's a different society and we react to these things in a different way, but our brain is still wired the same way. So the fact that you're surrounded by a negative news cycle is literally like thumping your amygdala all day long, and it actively bruises, which means you fall into fight or flight response faster than you naturally would if you were in a regenerative cycle where maybe you were exposed to something negative, then a bunch of positive stuff, then something negative, then something positive. But
I saw this come out of the words
regularity.
I saw this come out of the mouth of a producer for, I think it was MSN. He was caught on mic. I think it was O'Keefe Media got him saying that we've damaged our audience.
Yep,
we've damaged our audience with too much propaganda.
Yeah,
that we can't even talk to them truthfully now.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's just it. It's kind of that idea of if you pop a dog on the head with a newspaper enough, eventually they just flinch when you pick up a newspaper.
Yeah.
You don't
Pavlov effect in a sense, but a very negative version of it.
But that's just it. Our brain is wired to learn more faster from negative reinforcement than positive.
Yeah, sadly.
That's how we learned. Fire is hot and it burns you. Keep yourself safe. Cook your food, keep warm, keep a light on to keep critters out, but it will burn you. It will kill you.
That's why your nightly news will give you some fear headline, especially about your children, or whatever, to get you to tune in,
and tease you the whole time. Tonight at 10,
right?
It's like, if it was that important, wouldn't you show it during the 6 o'clock block?
Right. No, we didn't make sure you tune in at 10. But that's when our ad block is.
Somebody who worked in both mainstream media and side stream media, man.
And it's always the last clip.
And even then, it's not always a great news clip that you go out on. Like I said earlier, I would love to see news end with a sexy science clip. Like, on the brighter side of news, for hope for humanity, we created matter out of light. We could possibly feed all of humanity in a few years with a laser beam. Tune in tomorrow night, folks.
I've always said this. Like, to get to the UBI, back to that, the universal basic income, and people and helping
we have
people.
To have a universal mentality.
Right, exactly, because that's what they had in Star Trek. Yeah. Right. Everybody was more for like the inward exploration and development and helping their fellow man. It is a utopian dream society in a sense, because they also had the technology to back it up.
Well,
because they had replicators to replicate food for the poor. They had transporters to transport it efficiently without cost. They had the technology to support it.
That's right. That's right. And, the one thing that we have to remember, especially when it comes to Star Trek, things like that, is that human tendency of anthropomorphization, and the tendency to bring things home to humanity all the time when maybe we shouldn't, kind of like Carl Sagan said, maybe we shouldn't be throwing our genetic code on the side of a satellite.
Yeah, he had regrets.
You know, maybe we shouldn't be throwing our home address out there.
Yeah. Stephen Hawking even said that.
Because that's a very anthropomorphized view. The idea that if we were a civilization 10,000 years from now, we surely would have come together as humanity, and we would be a hive mind of love and goodness. That's what these will be, because they can travel amongst the stars and they're more advanced. Bro, that doesn't mean that they ain't warlike. That doesn't.
It took other writers in Star Trek to bring in people. It took other writers to bring in the Borg. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the idea where bad, advancement could go. I don't think Gene Roddenberry was not a fan of the Borg and that whole concept.
No, he wasn't, because it wasn't that reach out to.
He wanted to rise the vacation planet, and people are all peaceful and pretty much naked, and they're like, no, hold on, Gene, you're getting a little ahead of yourself there.
Well, and that's just it, though. Even the example I normally give is when I was in college doing abnormal psychology and going out and observing the gorillas at the Dallas Zoo. My professor would give me notes on my notes and be like, Chris, you cannot write what the gorilla is possibly doing with that rock or the stick. You're supposed to just write down 2:30 p.m. Friday, this date, gorilla picks up rock. 2:32 p.m. this date, gorilla puts rock down. That's it. You can't hypothesize as to why the gorilla is picking up the rock. You're anthropomorphizing the gorilla now. Yeah. You're giving him human motivation, and you can't do that. Kind of like there was a situation not too long ago where I saw in a social media group where somebody was talking about a demonic attack by a Bigfoot on some people. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Hold on. We are presupposing a lot of things about another species right now.
Just in that one sentence.
Even presupposing our own morality on a species. Even the idea of alien abduction without consent. That consent thing is kind of a human idea when it comes to freedom and free will. And
we don't ask the dolphin for his consent when we're putting an implant chip on to track him,
That's right. Exactly. So they're playing by a different set of rules the same way we play it by a different set of rules with an ivory-billed woodpecker to observe.
That's what I always loved about some of the Doctor Who episodes. If you ever watch Doctor Who, he really gets in as like, you're putting your ideas on it, but that has nothing to do with what they think or perceive,
Exactly.
Stupid human.
and whether it's data, whether it is that want of confirmation married with confirmation bias.
Yes.
Where you're unwilling to hear a new data set that may change your paradigm. Because it will change your paradigm. But that's what we're supposed to do. A lot of people use the word skeptic in a dirty way. I kind of wear my S skeptic like Superman.
That's a good way to put it.
Because I'm going to pull it out when I need to.
Right.
I've had my experiences in life that are totally unquantifiable, absolutely unquantifiable, and they change the way I believe. But can I let those experiences influence other data that comes
Rational
in? No.
Thought. Should you give that psychic $5,000?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you might have had you believe in psychics and you've been approved, but should you give them $5,000?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe not.
I don't think you should.
That should be something you should consider and weigh heavily. We even as hosts, man, we have an onus upon us to be there to listen to people's experience, to open-heartedly and open-mindedly listen to their experience, but to keep them away from a dangerous rabbit hole at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise you end up with situations like Corey Good in the community.
Oh my God. Don't get me started on Corey Good, please.
And I did a whole episode on it. Playing parts of his deposition, everything else.
Yeah, we've covered it on here.
At what point, if you're saying all these people that saw the blue avians are delusional because you created them, at what point when they're shaking your hand, asking you for an autograph and saying, I saw the blue avians too, and you go, amazing, $20 for
Give me
the
my money.
autograph, please.
No. And I'm suing you because that's my patent creation, my trademark.
Yeah, exactly. At what point did you start becoming the Pied Piper?
Right.
And
right.
And
Isn't
that's
it
just
fascinating though how
because people forget not only did the Pied Piper get rid of the rats, but when he wasn't paid, he did it to the children.
Exactly.
He came back for the children and said, "You want to pay me? I'll bring your children back, but I need some more money now."
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, it's a fascinating. Corey Good put out a very fascinating story out there.
Absolutely.
Right. Very fascinating.
Absolutely.
And if you created it, you should have made it a fictional novel. And
Obviously,
then come cry about
sold.
people stealing your patent. But if you're saying it's truthful,
but it exposed something once again. That idea of the want of confirmation, the idea of how fast and deep some are ready to dig for that want of confirmation and belonging, Jason.
Oh yeah.
Look
at the Montauk Project. I can't think of the guy's name, but like he used it to abuse people.
Yeah.
I can't think of the guy's name, but it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah.
He got all these people, like he had all this information about Montauk, and his stuff still spreads out there. But if you research it, and I can't think of the guy's name, not that I really want people to remember him, but he used it to manipulate people and do horrible sexual acts on young men, making them think they were part of some super soldier project.
Yeah.
He used it for nefarious ends. That's what I'm saying. The skeptical thing is definitely needed. You definitely need it in this community. It doesn't mean you don't believe anything, but you should need to be rational and think and look for the evidence and not let anybody lead you down some path of craziness without any real evidence.
Well, and that's just it. Experiential is a beautiful thing, and once again, I will never ever doubt an experiencer's experience until proven otherwise. I want to hear the experience. Only through the experience, and once again, more red circles, that we explain known quantitative and leave only the anomaly left to investigate. So it's part of it, and it's also part of the growing pains. And we need more Magellans in this world, both scientifically and in these communities that are willing to push the boundaries, that are willing to go.
Bruno.
Yeah. And we need to give people latitude. We need to give them the latitude to not only investigate these things, but the latitude of communication between them. Because if we crush that, even within our own communities, the prime example is the second NASA conference where a scientist literally had to stand up and be like, okay, so here's the thing. If you threaten scientists on social media, they may not want to be involved with your research. Just saying. You can't accuse them all of being a part of some overblown conspiracy. And then when they try to be involved with your research, be angry with them for being involved with your research.
Right.
You've been asking them to be involved for decades. And now they want to be involved. And you're like, but we don't trust you. Make me a cake. Why'd you make me this? I hate cake. So yeah,
well, that's where we're at, though. I mean, there is a lot of skepticism in our institutions. Some of it I'd have to say pretty much deservedly so, because we have been lied
absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. When you start looking at things like the Smithsonian, stuff like that, they've had some bad moments in their life. There have definitely been some pushings of paradigms, even when it comes to Egyptology and that kind of stuff.
Oh God, yeah.
As we talked about earlier. And the thing is, when we forget that science is not static, the example, I do a lot of astrophotography in my backyard, things like that.
Oh, awesome.
Huge astronomy buff. I have my astronomy textbook from my astronomy teacher in high school, from when she retired. My astronomy textbook has Pluto listed as a planet. My son's astronomical chart does not. Science changes. That's the nature of science. It may be slow to change, because of peer review and everything else, but science changes. And if it doesn't change and if it's static, that's called doctrine and dogma.
Well, we got a lot of that during a certain part of our life not long ago. Trust the science. Don't debate the science. Don't question the science. We know.
Yeah.
May I ask real quick? Do you post any of your photographs?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They're all over my personal Facebook page.
Awesome.
Yeah. I've taken quite a few of the recent comet.
Yeah, Jamie loves that.
You know, I'm all about it. It's a beautiful
thing. My wife
thing.
loves it too.
It's one of those.
That's awesome.
A good understanding of the heavens around you. Like I said, even.
How can you not be amazed when you look up into the night sky and see the stars? You got a clear night. How can you not be amazed at the wonder of the universe?
Yeah.
That we're here on this small little planet. That we exist at all. How can you not be amazed and at wonder and awe? You know?
Yeah, that we're made of the exact same elements that are in the Orion Nebula.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
it's remarkable.
It's awake. People, people. We got all this technology, all these things to distract us, but nature and the stars and life around you, everyday life, it can be a wondrous thing if you just open your eyes to it. And I don't want people to become zombies that I feel that they are.
Yeah.
Christopher is an excellent. I love having you on the show. We got to do this again.
Anytime.
And if you ever want me on your show, let me know. I'd definitely come on and talk about my experiences as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, guys.
Been awesome.
Yeah, we could talk about some. We went down a lot of different paths tonight.
Absolutely.
But I that's what I love. I love it. So thank you so much, guys. Check out Christopher Jordan. Curious Realm is the podcast. Go to curiousrealm.com to check out his website. And can you get your CDs and that through your website, Curious Realm?
Yes, you can get the CDs there. You can also get the all-new field observation and encounter log.
Oh, yes. Check that out.
If you are a field investigator for paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, UAPs, this is your source right here for getting that data down in the field as it happens. So
I would like to get a copy. That'll be on my wish list. I have a long wish list of books right now. That's getting high. My wife, I'm like, just pick several of them for my birthdays, Christmas, whatever. I need the books. I got lots of books, though. So thank you so much, Christopher.
Thank you,
Have
guys.
a great night. We definitely got to get you back on. We will be back next Sunday with June Lundgren. We're going to talk about demons. She's a demon seer, spiritual warrior, animal communicator. Next Sunday, same bad time, same bad channel, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Central, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. 11 p.m. Pacific time. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. Twitch. You can find us there. Paranormal radio app for Talkstream. Follow, subscribe, keep telling your friends, and you can help out the show on Patreon, YouTube Super Chat, and on PayPal, Jason Bland 730. Help out the show. Thank you to everybody who does. Have a great night. See you next Sunday.